Even here, there will be a bit more cloud developing as we go through the day as that system makes its way in. The heaviest rain and the greatest risk of thunder will be across western parts of Northern Ireland. Some torrential downpours could cause some localised issues. Temperatures for tomorrow will be a little bit higher than today, so it is going to feel pretty hot for some, particularly towards the southeast, and also quite humid again. Not as hot as it was over the weekend, however. As we go through the end of the day, more heavy thundery downpours affecting some western, northwestern parts. Drier towards the east, but eventually some rain will push through towards some eastern parts later this weekend. Through the weekend, it is going to turn wetter, but also fresher for most.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
£54,321 cash could be yours. Cash that you could spend however you like. It's like having an extra £1,000 each week for a whole year to play with. Someone is guaranteed to win this amazing amount of cash. So make sure that someone could be you. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
A very, very good afternoon to you. What a day ahead. It's 3 p.m. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. On today's show, now a government super injunction has been lifted. The grim impact of the Afghan asylum scandal is emerging. On today's show, I'll be joined by a British Army veteran of 16 years service who claims he was evicted by the MOD to make way for an Afghan family. He'll tell me what thanks is that for risking my life for Queen and country. And Reform UK has sensationally claimed the Afghan asylum scandal begs the question of treason. Today in the studio, I'll be joined by Reform's outspoken Mr. Zia Youssef.
When I listen to people like Nigel Farage complaining about the high price of energy, he blames it on renewables and isn't honest with people. He isn't honest that actually it's the high price of gas that's caused the cost of living problem. And he comes on programmes like yours, he tells you the problem, he doesn't have a solution. His solution would actually play into the hands of his friend Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, today, Liberal Democrat leader Ed Davey will blast Nigel Farage for peddling lies over renewable energy. But with net zero costing us all more, is Mr Davey missing the point? And in a landmark ruling today, gender-critical lesbian Lindsay Smith has won a huge case against Northumbria police, who acted without impartiality by marching at a Newcastle Pride Parade event in favour of the Pride team. Now, does this mean that the days of cops dancing the Macarena are sadly behind us? Well, I'll be joined by free speech warrior Harry Miller, who was with Lindsay in the High Court today. Welcome to the show. Now, as the true horror emerges of the Afghan asylum scandal, the details are poured out today on GB News. 16 years in the British Army, asked to leave his MOD accommodation to make way for one of those families brought into the country in secrecy by the previous Conservative government. What does that say about the country risking everything, risking your life, risking your very, very entity, only to be kicked out of a house to make way for asylum seekers from Afghanistan? Now, if that's not enough, we've got Zia Yusuf in the studio, sat here right now, in fact, raring to go, a war of words breaking out between the Conservative Party and Reform UK. Who knew what? When? Was there a cover-up? Was the super injunction part of the arsenal of protecting the Conservative Party, particularly so close to a general election? Or was a necessary tool to try and save lives? The facts emerge, the debate rages on. Please get involved. gbnews.com/your say is the way to do that. But now it's time for your headlines, and here's Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you very much. The top stories. The final Prime Minister's questions before summer recess saw sharp clashes this afternoon, with Kemi Badenoch accusing Sir Keir Starmer of failing to define working people.
I asked him what a modest income was. He answered what a working person is. He doesn't know what a modest income is, and even on working people, they cannot define it.
However, the Prime Minister hit back, saying after 14 years of Conservative government, they don't get to lecture anyone.
Since we've been in government, we've created 380,000 jobs, the employment rate is up and inactivity is down, the complete opposite of what we inherited.
Sir Keir Starmer says former Tory ministers have serious questions to answer about how the names of Afghans who worked with UK forces were exposed. Thousands of Afghan nationals are being relocated to the UK after their names were accidentally sent in an email in February of 2022, but the leak was only discovered by the British military in August of 2023. A super injunction preventing the reporting of that mistake was imposed that year in an attempt to prevent the Taliban from finding out about the leak. That injunction was lifted yesterday. Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride says that this should never happen again.
When this data was leaked, which was a terrible error on the part of the Ministry of Defence and should never, ever happen again. It's extraordinary it happened in the first place. But it did place at risk tens of thousands of Afghans who had, in many cases, bravely assisted us.
The Prevent scheme must rapidly adapt to online radicalisation, a major review has warned this afternoon. It follows terror attacks by Axel Rudakabana and Sir David Amos's killer, both previously referred to the scheme. New Commissioner Lord Anderson has made 10 recommendations to overhaul Prevent's approach, including better tracking of violent ideologies and online behaviour. Elsewhere, inflation has unexpectedly jumped to 3.6%, the highest level in 18 months. Food prices have now surged for the third month in a row, with airfares seeing their biggest monthly hike in 7 years. The Chancellor says she's working people are still struggling and insists there's more to do to bring prices down. The Bank of England is still expected to cut interest rates in August, but experts say the inflation spike could slow further cuts. A nurse suspended after complaining about sharing a changing room with a transgender colleague has been cleared of gross misconduct. Sandy Peggy was accused of misgendering Dr. Beth Upton and of patient care failings, but a disciplinary panel found no evidence to support those claims. The decision came hours before her employment tribunal resumes in Dundee, where she's alleging harassment and victimisation. NHS Fife says no sanctions will be imposed, but the case has already cost the Health Board more than £200,000. The tribunal follows a Supreme Court ruling defining sex in law as biological. And finally, the Co-op has confirmed every one of its 6.5 million members had their data stolen in a cyber attack. The supermarket's boss says she's devastated, and the hack felt personal, she said, because of the toll on her staff. No financial data was taken, but names, addresses and contact details were accessed. 4 people have since been arrested over that hack, including a 17-year-old boy. The Co-op was one of several major retailers targeted, alongside Marks & Spencer's and Harrods. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More news from me at past.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of the markets. The pound buying you $1.3388 and €1.1548. The price of gold, £2,486.95 per ounce, and the FTSE 100 at 8,965 points.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
What a show we got. Let's get weaving. Now, Downing Street says that Sir Keir Starmer was angry when he was informed of the secret Afghan asylum relocation scheme and the data breach at the Ministry of Justice. Now, in an attempt to keep the scandal hidden, the previous Conservative government used an unprecedented super injunction to stop it being reported, usually, of course, deployed by in flagrante Premier League footballers. However, with the super injunction having now been lifted, we can now reveal that a total of 6,900 Afghans have been or will be resettled in the UK due to this data breach at a cost to the taxpayer of £850 million and rising. And now veterans say that Afghans have been prioritised for housing at the expense of former soldiers. And joining me now is GB News' Home and Security Editor, Mark White. Mark, welcome to the show. The day after, the night before, the true horror is emerging, the cost, the magnitude, the priority of Afghans over British service people, and a huge political row breaking out. What's the latest?
Well, the Prime Minister, of course, in PMQ said that ministers in the previous Conservative government have some serious questions to answer. And I think he's right. We heard today, of course, from the former Defence Secretary, Sir Ben Wallace, mounting a robust defence of his decision, and it was his decision, to seek that injunction to allow for this top-secret operation to send thousands of Afghan nationals and their families from Afghanistan to the UK after that email accidentally leaked the names of those individuals who were on the list. Now, he said that he did it for the very best of reasons, that those people on that list would be at real risk of harm from the Taliban. But I think there are questions to be asked about actually how robust this risk assessment was that the MOD carried out after this leak came to light. And were these people who came here in their thousands really at the kind of risk that required a super injunction and this kind of secret process that lasted the better part of 2 years? Because now we have the Labour government who've carried out their own risk assessment and have decided that there are still around 10,000 individuals who are on this list, still in country, still in Afghanistan, who they believe are not really at that kind of a risk that requires them to be taken here and resettled in the United Kingdom. So if that's true of them, then was it really true of the almost 7,000 who will be coming here by the time that the last of those that have come under this secret deal arrive here, Martin? I think some serious questions that we're told the Defence Select Committee will be asking of former ministers in the weeks ahead.
OK, thank you for that update. Mark White, always a pleasure, and we'll see you later in the show. Let's get back now to the studio for some serious political analysis. I'm joined by GB News' political editor, Christopher Hope, and also by the head of Reform UK's Department of Government Efficiency, Doge, Mr Zia Youssef. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Chris, let's start with you. The political blame game is in full swing. Yesterday, we had Tom Purscliffe on the show, the legal migration minister. I said to him at the time, what did you know? Yes. Was this super injunction part of a state-endorsed cover-up scheme, a politically motivated scheme? He said no, it's to protect the identities of the Afghanis. Today, Johnny Mercer has said, well, only about 1,000 Afghans actually served with British forces. The numbers don't add up and the blame game begins. What's the latest?
There are different schemes running. That's probably why the numbers don't add up. The ARR scheme, the different routes, the Arab scheme. There are some names on both lists. The blame game has started. Yesterday was the shock of the scale of the money put aside, even the hundreds of millions of pounds spent. Maybe billions more, but that wasn't required. The numbers coming to this country, away from the eyes of Reform UK, critics, Labour government, many Labour MPs had no idea. Journalists, we had no idea.
Well, we were gagged.
We were gagged.
We
the nature of the super injunction was actually imposed by the courts, not the government. They applied for an injunction, lifted to a super injunction by the court. They got their reasons for that. But the blame game is starting. We've got the Defence Committee, led by Labour MP. They were going to do a review into who knew what where. The Tory MPs and those who were formerly in government should cooperate. But Sir Keir Starmer raised the tension, or raised the pitch of the story at the beginning of PMQs earlier. Let's hear what he said to the MPs.
We warned in opposition about Conservative management of this policy, and yesterday the Defence Secretary set out the full extent of the failings that we inherited. A major data breach, a super injunction, a secret route that has already cost hundreds of millions of pounds. Ministers who served under the party opposite have serious questions to answer about how this was ever allowed to happen.
OK, there we have it there from the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer. Now, what's happening now is Tory ministers in charge at the time are trying to get their response out. We saw it from Sir Ben Wallace on the radio this morning and also in the Telegraph. We just got a statement just dropped, 2 pages from the former Home Secretary, Suella Braverman. She says that ministers couldn't speak about the injunction, with the way it was relating. She said that there were some basic facts she wants to get out there. The leak came from the MOD. I was not a minister, in bold, she says. I had no responsibility for officials working there, not her department, she says, even though she was, of course, the Home Secretary. She's opposed the plans in 2023 by the MOD to bring back 24,000 Afghan nationals to the UK. She was working at tightening the system. Clearly, she's trying to ensure that her record is not damaged by this extraordinary story over the past 24 hours. She says what was happening was outrageous and must never happen again. She said she wants to be clear how it happened. The Arab scheme, she says, isn't the same as the ARR scheme, the 2 different schemes in play at the time, as I said earlier. A disgraceful betrayal of the people by their own government. She feels only shame, and a handful of others fought this, but we failed to stop it. And that's why, she says on election night, she apologised for what went wrong. And just finally, this episode, she says, exposes everything wrong with the Westminster establishment. The state apparatus thinks it can hide its failures behind legal technicalities while ordinary people pay the price. I understand your anger and I share it. The people that run this country so badly need to take a long, hard look at themselves. Those responsible must be held accountable, and the system must be that enable this cover-up must be dismantled. Now, she sounds very much like, frankly, a Reform UK MP there. She's a Tory MP, but she's furious and blaming the system, the state. But she was part of it, but she's blaming it.
Fascinating stuff, and that's literally just come out now in real time. My guest sitting next to me, Zia Youssef, head of Doge Reform UK. You heard that in real time, as we did, Mr. Youssef. Richard Tice, your deputy leader, wrote a withering article in today's Telegraph saying the whole situation really does beg the question of treason, keeping MPs and the British public in the dark about importing thousands of unchecked fighting-age males and their families is not in our best interest. And you've also launched a salvo towards Robert Jenrick and the party. What's your feelings today?
Martin, this is probably the biggest scandal, biggest political cover-up in Britain, certainly in my lifetime. We're still learning some of the details of it. The scale and the magnitude of it are staggering. Tens of thousands of Afghans have been granted asylum in secret at a cost already of hundreds of billions. Chris, but you said not required, but could still be required. Over £7 billion has been earmarked for that. £7 billion, that's 4.5 times more than the supposed savings that Labour are going to make from the winter fuel allowance for British pensioners. And what this shows is it shines an illumination on the fact that the two old parties, the Tory party and the Labour Party, frankly hate their own people and will stop at nothing. Will stop at nothing to cover their own behinds and cover their tracks. How on earth it can be possible that tens of thousands of Afghans, most of whom, by the way, had been previously rejected in terms of their asylum claims, and that group includes people who are known sex offenders. This is Afghanistan we're talking about, just speaking about numbers and facts. According to official figures, Afghans are 10 times more likely to commit sex offences, to be convicted of sex offences than British people, and the highest likelihood of any country in the world. There's a reason why that super injunction was taken out, in the full knowledge of the people you just talked about, months before a general election. It's because they knew that if the British public knew about this, it would have caused such an uproar that maybe it would have been 0 seats for the Conservative Party. I want to say this, anyone who's watching this programme who wants that accountability that Suella Braverman just talked about, go and sign our petition, afghancoverup.com. We are calling, Reform and Nigel, we are calling for a judge-led independent inquiry to find out who knew what happened and when.
Two questions for you, Zia Youssef. How do you know there were sex offenders? That was said by Nigel Farage yesterday on social media. How are you so certain of that? And if you do become the next government, you are a long way ahead in the polls. What would you have done? You heard Sir Ben Wallace today saying they were worried about loss of life, about people who supported our troops in Afghanistan being hunted down on a kill list by the Taliban. Faced with that, wouldn't you do the same? But firstly, the issue on sex offenders.
Yeah, so go and look at the Daily Mail's very well sourced, and the Mail's done exceptional work on this. Remember, they were the ones, which is why the super injunction happened in the first place.
They were gagged for 2 years.
They were gagged for 2 years. They know this inside out. Go and look at the article yesterday, very well sourced, that makes that exact point. So that's the citation there. In terms of, and again, you cannot overstate this. They knew this, and they willingly brought these people to this country with no vetting process. And by the way, you can run the maths. You know, if you're talking about 59 convictions, sex offence convictions per 10,000 people, run the numbers. People at home can run the numbers about how many convictions, that's a statistically significant sample, is on the people who made these decisions. It's an absolute disgrace.
And what would you do if you're in power? Because you might be in power in 3.5 years' time. You're faced with a similar leak, similar threat to life, the Taliban hunting down people who supported our troops in Afghanistan. What would you do? Would you not have ordered the injunction?
Well, firstly, as was pointed out by your security correspondent a moment ago, why was the super injunction lifted in the first place? Because it turns out, in all likelihood, that entire thing was a scare tactic and totally unnecessary. The reality is the super injunction was there to cover political behinds, not because they cared about the Afghan people. And I want to make another point. Ben Wallace wrote in the Telegraph that he would do it all again. He's proud of what he did. He's proud of the betrayal. I'll tell you what we'd do. We'd make every decision. Nigel, as Prime Minister, will make every single decision without apology through the lens of what's in the interests of British people. The number of people, as Johnny Mercer said, and we make no apologies for this, number of people who served bravely alongside our troops, number maybe about 1,000. If we could get those people out surgically, first of all, you bring competence to government. That's what reform will do. That's the correct answer. As soon as it becomes blurred and it's either, well, you can either get those people out or you've got to bring tens of thousands of people, including known sex offenders. No, sorry, we're prioritising the British people. And I'll tell you what we definitely will never do is cover this up and hide it from the British people. As soon as you do that, Chopper, you don't have a democracy anymore.
Zia Youssef, do you accept, though, the words there of Suella Braverman that she felt herself that she was gagged? You know, the super injunction also applied to parliamentarians, it applied to journalists, it applied to everybody in the land. To have broken that could have resulted in a prison sentence. That's a reality. We could like it or not. I certainly don't. As a journalist, I hate being gagged. I think it's against free speech. I think it's the wrong thing for the country. But Suella Braverman couldn't have broken that. Robert Jenrick couldn't have broken that. Do you admit that they had to obey the law?
I heard that statement for the first time live as Chopper read it. I agreed with the vast majority of that statement, and I'd encourage Suella to go and sign our petition if she believes that, because that's how you're going to get it. In terms of ministerial responsibility, sorry, you are responsible as a minister. And let's not forget, with all due respect to Suella, she didn't resign as a matter of principle. She was sacked. Right? The people in Cabinet, if you knew about this, you had ample time to do something about it. And there are many historic... This is one of the greatest political cover-ups, and they knew it. And she didn't resign as a matter of principle. Remember when Robin Cook gave that speech when he resigned before the Iraq War? Do you remember that? There are opportunities for people to act out of principle. There was an opportunity, they didn't take it. But look, this is about the entire Tory party. This is a nail, arguably the final nail, in what's left of the Tory party. The two parties hate their own people. They are willing to cover things up to such a degree that democracy itself, frankly, is now on the line in this country.
See, as if quickly, if we could, a lot of people had been holding a torch for the fact there could be some unification between Reform and the Conservatives at a future election. Perhaps even people like Suella Braverman may have jumped ship. Is this very public spat a death knell to that?
It's all this is Reform accurately reflecting the anger of the British people with regards to the greatest political scandal of all time. I think all of that is utterly irrelevant to this conversation. I can tell you, Nigel, this was what makes him different as a political leader. The word defections and political calculation does not even factor into the thinking of the leadership at Reform. We care about the British people. Nobody will escape scrutiny. Rumours of defections does not mean you now escape scrutiny for your role, as I said, in probably the biggest political scandal and cover-up in our lifetimes.
Ryle Braverman, the husband of Suella Braverman, has quit your party this lunchtime. We don't know why. It could be because some of the criticism on Twitter from you and others at the party of the Tories. What's your comment on that? Will you miss him as being a member? He's been there since December last year.
I've met Raoul a few times, seemed like a perfectly personable guy. People are welcome to be a member. You know, he had no official position. He was a member. People are free to join or resign as they please. Frankly, again, all we care about right now is the interests of the British people, holding to account everybody who knew about this. And let me reiterate, there will be no political calculation that comes into that.
Zizif, head of Doge Reform UK, thank you very much for joining us in the studio today. Chris Hope, excellent as ever. Thank you very much. Now, still to come, a landmark court case has found that police breached impartiality by marching under a pride flag. A no-nonsense cop joins me next. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's News Channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
I mean, the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Time is 3:26. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, the High Court has ruled in favour of Lindsay Smith in her case against Northumbria Police. And judges agreed that the force's uniformed participation in last year's Pride March breached their duty to remain impartial. Now, is this a win for common sense? And does this mean that the days of cops dancing the Macarena, look at them, doing the YMCA, are those days sadly behind us? Well, I'm joined in the studio now by the former Scotland Yard detective Mike Neville, a man our warrant has never danced a Macarena in his life. Mike, I digress. This is surely a victory for common sense, and the reason the ruling went one way was quite simply, if police are wearing pride colours at a pride march and it kicks off, they've clearly already taken a side. The court ruled that's the opposite of ruling without fear or favour. What's your take?
Well, absolutely that. So when you're a constable, everybody takes an oath, and one of the things in the oath is you'll act without fear or favour. And I congratulate Lindsay here for a great victory. It's nice to see the little people win sometimes. And if you go to a Pride March, that's people's business. But let's say an imam or a Catholic priest organised some sort of counter march, and there was a clash. And then the police turn up with rainbow makeup and a rainbow police car. What does it say? It says, I'm supporting one side rather than the other. It's like going to a Manchester United-Man City match and all the police officers wearing red rosettes and red and white scarves. It's sending the wrong message. And Pride has developed from being sort of about gay rights into all sorts of other things, very political, about trans rights, that obviously Lindsay disagreed with. But what it shows about the police is, at the top in particular, they talk about diversity, but there's no diversity of thought. They all believe in exactly the same things, this liberal left-wing view.
Do you think that this will be adhered to by other forces? Could we see police... I mean, look, when you look at your screen now, Mike Neville, and you see various constables and police leaders waving the Pride flag, and, you know, Pride by its own definition is a political movement. It has political outputs, it has political goals. Do you think we can see now policing without pride, or will they simply ignore it?
Well, I'm afraid they'll try and ignore it. We had the ruling about women being biological women and the need to provide facilities for biological women. And already the police were trying to kick back against that. And so, you know, when it came to searching people by who searched. So the police, they're just, this viewpoint is utterly entrenched within the police. And so it will take something to shift that viewpoint. But now we've got this ruling, we can only hope for some common sense on this. And the police have just got to remain impartial. I mean, today in the Times it was reported that only 40% of crime is reported in London because people don't have faith in the police. 1% of thefts are solved. Isn't it time that the police focused on those things? If you're gay or straight, I'm sure you'd rather have the police focusing on catching criminals and waving flags.
I think you're exactly right. And Harry Miller, the founder of Fair Cop, who was in the High Court ruling earlier, he joins me later on the show. He's so happy with this, he's going to retire from Fair Cop. He thinks this is his crowning glory, a victory for the little man, the little woman. But on a serious note, can I ask you maybe a bit of a facetious question? Yeah. What message do you think this sends out to the public when you see police officers dancing around, pirouetting with flags, with makeup on and rainbow cars? Does it send out the message that actually they're not really as serious people? We all agree in equality. We all agree in living your own life to its full. Does it make them look a bit soft?
It makes them look daft. And what it tells the public, though, is they're not focusing on what they should be. If you're gay or straight, black or white, what you want the police to do is make sure that if you walk down the street, you're safe. If you're in your home, you're safe. No one's going to break in there and steal things or attack you or wherever. We want our families to be safe. And when people see the Macarena and things like that, and then they read in the paper, only 5% of burglaries are solved. So 95% of burglars get away with it scot-free. I'm sure that 99% of the public, even more, would say, look, really focus on that, stop these daft things. You prove, there's officers who are gay and straight, black and white, they all do a lot of them do a good job, but they're being badly led by people who like virtue signalling.
Would you like to see all of these diversity, equity and inclusivity roles simply removed from the police force, Mike Neville? Spend the money instead on coppers?
Well, I absolutely think they should be. There's so many people now, it's become a massive industry. And it's like the recruitment thing. No one has ever said to me, when I was a senior officer, no one ever said to me, I really didn't like the sex or sexuality or the colour of the officer who came to my house to help me. What they say is, I got a rubbish service. So the burglar wasn't caught. The person who broke into my van and stole all my tools so I can't work, they weren't caught. The shopkeeper who has all this stuff nicked and he can't make a profit and feed his family. That's the complaint, not all this nonsense.
Yeah, Mike Neville, I've been violently assaulted. Please send an LGBTQ officer, said nobody ever.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the reality, right? People don't care. They just want to be safe. They want to feel safe. And by the way, have a peaceful life, irrespective of your sexuality. But take the politics out of policing.
Absolutely. I mean, and you look at the Chief Constable of Northumbria, this Jardine woman, she could be an NHS manager, a Labour, front bench MP. They're like clones, and they're all like clones. They all believe, they're programmed to believe exactly the same thing. And it's time, as I said before, to have some diversity of thought and also some focus on catching criminals, preventing crime and making communities safer.
Mike Neville, superb. And have you ever danced the Macarena?
Unfortunately not. I'm more of a rugby league sort of player than that.
I do it. Mike Neville, always a pleasure to have in the studio. Thank you very, very much indeed. Now, a spokesperson for Northumbria Police told GB News this. During these events, while our primary aim is to keep people safe, it also provides us with an opportunity to engage with people, including those who may have less confidence in policing. It is vitally important they feel supported and we continue to build their trust in us. And that is why we felt it important to challenge the case which was brought against us and which has implications for wider policing. We will work through the ruling to understand the implications while staying true to our values of fairness, visibility and support for all. So there we have it. And lots more still to come between now and 4 o'clock, including as the government super injunction has been lifted, the grim impact of the Afghan asylum scandal is emerging. I'll get a legal expert's opinion on that unparalleled super injunction. That's next. First, here's your headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you. The headlines at 3:30. The final Prime Minister's questions before summer recess saw sharp clashes this afternoon, with Kemi Badenoch accusing Sir Keir Starmer of failing to define working people.
I asked him what a modest income was. He answered what a working person is. He doesn't know what a modest income is, and even on working people, they cannot define it.
The Prime Minister hit back, saying after 14 years of Conservative government, they don't get to lecture anyone.
Since we've been in government, we've created 380,000 jobs, the employment rate is up and inactivity is down, the complete opposite of what we inherited.
Sir Keir Starmer says the Tories have serious questions to answer over what he called a major data breach exposing thousands of Afghans who helped UK forces. The leak led to a secret £850 million relocation scheme. Thousands of Afghans are now being moved to the UK. Inflation has soared 3.6%, its highest in almost 18 months, with food and transport costs pushing prices up. And those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more news from me at 4 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello, very good afternoon to you. This is your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. We are going to see some thundery rain pushing into western parts as we go through later this week. All the time, eastern areas holding on to the drier weather for a little bit longer. That's because there's higher pressure towards the east of us, with weather systems trying to come in from the west. Through the rest of today, they're not making a huge amount of progress, just bringing a bit of cloud and rain to the far southwest. But actually, as we go overnight, we're going to see a bit more of that wet weather feeding in across parts of Wales and Northern Ireland in particular, and some of that is going to be heavy, could even be thundery too. Further east, clearer skies, but despite the clearer skies, it's not going to be a particularly chilly night. A pretty warm night for most of us, temperatures holding up in the mid to high teens in some places, especially towards the west. So a warm start to the day tomorrow, quite a bright one across much of Scotland. Lots of sunshine on offer here, just a little bit more cloud, some showery bursts perhaps pushing into the far west of Scotland, Dumfries, Galloway perhaps getting some of those heavier bursts. So across Northern Ireland, a cloudier start to the day, and there will be outbreaks of rain. They are going to turn heavy and thundery later, and it's a west-east split as we head further south across England and Wales. Western parts will be quite cloudy, and there will be a bit of rain pushing through at times. The best of the sunshine through tomorrow will always be across eastern areas, but even here there will be a bit more cloud developing as we go through the day as that system makes its way in. The heaviest rain and the greatest risk of thunder will be across western parts of Northern Ireland. Some torrential downpours could cause some localised issues. Temperatures for tomorrow will be a little bit higher than today, so it is going to feel pretty hot for some, particularly towards the southeast, and also quite humid again. Not as hot as it was over the weekend, however. As we go through the end of the day, more heavy thundery downpours affecting some western, northwestern parts, drier towards the east, but eventually some rain will push through towards some eastern parts later this weekend. Through the weekend, it is going to turn wetter, but also fresher for most.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The A9 is shut between Slough and Carbridge due to a road traffic incident, prompting drivers to consider alternate routes. Roadworks on the M48 Severn Bridge eastbound caused a closure with diversions in effect. In Norfolk, all lanes on the A47 westbound are closed due to a collision. A fire led to delays on the M5 northbound between junction 15 and 14, with one lane obstructed and 20-minute delays anticipated. A vehicle broke down on the M25 clockwise, closing one of 4 lanes between junction 5 and 6. And on the trains, expect major disruption at Peterborough via Cross Country and East Midlands Railway. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. Your time is 3:38 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, let's return to today's massive top story, which, of course, is that the government has been running a secret resettlement scheme for thousands of Afghan nationals after a major data leak put their lives at risk. That's come at a huge cost to the taxpayer of £850 million and rising. Now, let's get the thoughts now of the legal affairs commentator and the former solicitor Joshua Rosenberg. Mr. Rosenberg, a pleasure to have your esteemed company. You've written an excellent Substack trying to get your teeth into this super injunction. Where did it come from? Why was it deployed? And was it the right thing to do? Mr. Justice Chamberlain said, "Am I going bonkers?" The fact this was played in the first place, and a lot of people are saying it perhaps was part of a political cover-up. What's your take?
I don't think there's evidence that it was a political cover-up. It was obviously a request by the Secretary of State for Defence in the previous Conservative government for an injunction. It was a judge, not Mr. Justice Chamberlain, but the duty judge in the middle of the summer 2 years ago who decided to make it a super injunction, which meant that you couldn't even report there was an injunction in existence. Mr. Justice Chamberlain was clearly anxious about the thing throughout. He tried to lift it, but he was overturned by the Court of Appeal. And once he got the report from this former Ministry of Defence official, Paul Rimmer, a few weeks ago, who made it clear that the Ministry of Defence was not seeking to keep the injunction going on any longer, Mr. Justice Chamberlain agreed to lift it.
And of course, Mr. Rosenberg, it had grave implications for reporting prowess, the ability to even talk about it, and for free speech. The first ever contra mundum against the whole world super injunction. Looking back, Joshua Rosenberg, do you think this was a sledgehammer to crack a nut?
It does look as if the injunction went on for longer than it was needed. And if you look at what Mr. Justice Chamberlain said at the very end of his judgment published yesterday, there is a suggestion that perhaps it wasn't necessary. He said it will be for others to consider whether lessons can be learned from the way the initial assessments in this case were prepared, and whether the courts were or are generally right to accord such weight to assessments of this kind. What he's saying is that he was told that this was very serious, and that he and the other judge, Mr. Justice Robin Knowles, who granted the original judgment, really had little choice but to accept the evidence they received from the Ministry of Defence. He's wondering whether that perhaps went a bit too far, and was it really necessary to have this injunction? Initially, I'm sure it was, but did it need to go on for 2 years, and did it need to be a super injunction whose existence couldn't be reported? And I think this is the thing that concerned Mr. Justice Chamberlain more than anything. Did it need, in effect, to stop the whole issue, as you say, these millions of pounds being spent on resettlement being discussed in Parliament, because that was the effect of saying that nobody could talk about it?
And Joshua Rosenberg, now the cat is out the bag. The true horror, the magnitude, the cost, the implications perhaps for public safety. We have an army veteran on the show later on who was evicted from his MOD quarters to be replaced by an Afghan family. Now this is all coming out, and as Mr. Justice Chamberlain said himself, when you're dealing with £7 billion, it's not possible to lose that amount of money down the back of the sofa. But one point I think you made very, very eloquently, I'd like to repeat if you could, and that is the journalists often get a bad name, but in this instance, they behaved with respect and they obeyed the law to the letter of the law, did they not?
Absolutely right, and Mr. Justice Chamberlain praised them for doing so. Now, it's fair to say that if they hadn't done so, well, they might have faced punishment, even imprisonment. Although things can leak out without it being too obvious who has leaked them, that didn't happen. The whole thing was kept secret. By yesterday, hundreds of people in newsrooms across the country knew about it. Many of the journalists were represented in court. They were allowed to make statements to the court. They were even allowed to cross-examine a Ministry of Defence witness. And Mr. Justice Chamberlain made it clear that he benefited from the insights that defence correspondents in particular were able to provide, because, of course, they speak to people that the government doesn't speak to. So he clearly thought it was right to listen to the journalists, and I think the journalists repaid his trust.
Joshua Rosenberg, we talk a lot about this phrase, which some people don't like, of two-tiered justice. Do you think this is leaving a sour taste in the mouths of the British public? Super injunctions normally deployed by the mega-rich footballers when they play away, as it were, a tool of gagging the media for the state to do that against its own media, against its own people. Now the truth is out. Do you think that could have bad consequences? We're already hearing reports that the MOD are being warned there could be civil unrest over this.
There doesn't seem to have been any civil unrest, and there's no reason why there should be. As far as the Ministry of Defence were concerned, this was a data leak. It was a mistake by an individual, a serious mistake. It was seen at the time, although nothing had happened in the year and a half between the leak and it becoming known to the Ministry of Defence. Nevertheless, they feared that the lives of these Afghans who had helped British troops, British government, during the war with the Taliban, they thought those lives were at risk. And of course, if you tell a court that the lives of people are going to be at risk if information emerges, the natural thing for a court to do will be, first of all, to order, to try and put a stop on the bottle, to try and stop any information leaking out further, and to try to manage the apparent crisis. After that, the question is whether more should have been done more quickly, whether the injunction should have been lifted. No, said the Court of Appeal a year ago, because the Court of Appeal judges were persuaded that there was still a risk to these individuals. There may still be, for all we know, but the risk is said to be minimal and well, not minimal, but less than it was, and certainly manageable. These things are questions for the courts to decide on evidence. It's for officials on behalf of the government to give evidence to the court, but it is right for the courts to step in and protect people's lives if those are at risk, and they are much more important than the personal affairs of popular entertainers.
Joshua, John He, the Defence Minister, said yesterday when he addressed the Commons, there is little evidence of retribution from the Taliban. It's highly unlikely that being on this spreadsheet would have been the piece of information that endangers life. Looking back on how this super injunction was deployed with seemingly little risk, do you think this will be something of a blot on the copybook, a stain on the legal establishment, simply an example of overly officious, heavy-handed lawfare?
I don't think you can blame the legal establishment at all. I think they were simply reacting to the request by the Ministry of Defence, by the government, for this injunction based on the evidence that they had. To be fair to the Ministry of Defence, at the time they didn't know who had got this list. They feared that the Taliban would target people. They feared that these brave individuals who'd helped the British authorities might be tortured, might be murdered. On that basis, any court will give the government the benefit of the doubt until they've investigated further. So I don't think the legal establishment is to blame, although you may say that the Court of Appeal was rather more cautious. I think Mr. Justice Chamberlain handled it very well. He was naturally concerned. He was naturally careful. He showed cautious respect to the evidence that he received from the Ministry of Defence, but certainly not slavish deference.
OK, thank you. Firm but fair as ever. Joshua Rosenberg, thanks for joining us on the show. Now, if you're in search of some holiday sun this year, then here is the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
There's the risk of some more heavy, thundery downpours affecting eastern parts of Europe as we go through the rest of this week. But across western areas towards the Canary Islands, Madeira, across much of Spain and Portugal, it's largely fine on Thursday. A decent amount of sunshine and feeling very warm or hot in that sunshine as well. Some showery rain likely across much of Italy, drier towards the south, but across parts of Greece, Turkey, there will be a fair few showers on offer. A drier theme for many through the end of the week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, weekdays from 9 p.m.
Should we be paying more for the BBC, do you think?
Yes, in the short term. It's for a cost of a cappuccino a week. You don't only get all the television channels, you get all the radio channels, local news, you get the websites, you get World Service, a significant amount of that. You've got a vast range of things. It's not just a television licence. And the BBC licence fee, in real terms, has gone down about 40% in 15 years. What I think we need is two things. One is an immediate increase, significant increase, so we stabilise the situation.
Go on, how much, Roger? What's the fee? Go on.
Hold on.
Well, tell me how much.
Then, secondly, hold on, we need to have a proper debate publicly about whether we want public service broadcasting, how we want to deliver it, and how we want to pay for it. The BBC has cut as much as it can. We should now have a public debate about what we want.
OK. All right, the BBC's cut as much as it can. I mean, grief. I would love to try to see the BBC try to operate on the kind of budget.
I thought you were chairman, objective chairman here. It was a head-to-head with this lady, and you were going to be an objective chairman.
Yeah, well, you decided not to answer any of my questions. But anyway, June, I'll put this one to you. Well, what do you think about the money?
Yes.
June, what do you think about the money being paid for the BBC? Should we pay more?
In 2020, you lost 80, let's have a look, 80,000. And then by 2023 to 24, that went up to 500,000 licence fees not being paid. That's because they don't want the product. A lot of the reason is the bias side of the news, which is why people watch GB News. The programme making, I can understand the creative part of it, But what you've got to look at from the public's point of view is they pay their licence whether they're using all those facilities or not.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Time is 10 to 4. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, a Labour-run council intends to reintroduce plans that will allow officers to hand out £100 fines for swearing. Thanet's district council said it intended to bring back the ban because police officers had said they were struggling to manage antisocial behaviour without it. Well, joining now to discuss this is the comedian and the broadcaster Leo Kearse, who absolutely isn't going to swear and get me in trouble. Leo Kearse, a pleasure to have your company. Seriously, I've been burgled, my house has been robbed, I can't get a police officer anywhere, and the priority is to give people a £100 fine for swearing. Blooming hell.
Yeah, I'll definitely be. I definitely won't be swearing. We don't need that £100 fine split between us right now. It's ridiculous. But this is just an absolute example of government overreach. And also, you know, there's bound to be mission creep with this. They talk about the swearing causing harassment, alarm, or distress, and it's pointed at sort of street drinkers who apparently have been swearing in the town centre or whatever. It's feeling kind of anti-Scottish. I'm not going to lie. You know what I mean? Scottish people love going down into English town centre, getting a few cans of special brew and cutting loose with some spicy language. And you know, this feels like it's actually clamping down on my authentic cultural heritage. You've got to ask, would they do this to a Syrian?
Well, I think we know the answer to that. But the thing is, have they ever been to Thanet? I mean, I've been to Thanet. Everyone swears. It's like if you go to Nottingham, everyone swears. If you go to Glasgow, if you don't swear, they think you're weird.
Yeah, it's punctuation in Glasgow. And to be honest, if the authorities don't want British people to swear, can they please stop doing things that make us want to swear? I mean, this story about billions of our taxes going to bring Afghan men with God knows what attitudes over to the UK, and they're doing it in secret. I mean, oh my God, I spent a good 20 minutes in the shower effing and blinding about that one. I think, you know, if they made Britain less of a place that made you absolutely crack under the mental pressure of how it's being destroyed, then maybe we wouldn't want to drink special brew and get drunk and swear in the middle of Gravesend.
I'm absolutely with you. I think there's cause and effect. And most of what any of the government's been doing for the past 10 years makes me want to swear. Sometimes, I don't know, at pigeons. Anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's bound to be mission creep with this. You know, whenever they bring in new legislation, they'll say, "Oh, it's just to so that street drinkers don't swear." I don't know how they're going to pay the £100 fine anyway, and if they do, it's all going to be paid in 10 pences. But they'll start off with it directed at street drinkers, and then before you know it, they'll have like little cameras on the wall making sure that when you're watching TV, you don't swear, that during sex you don't shout too loud. It's the government intrusion into our lives is absolutely ridiculous. And what happened to the government trusting the British people? You know, we're one of the greatest countries in the world. You can trust the British people.
Leo, we've got to leave it there. Run out of time. Pleasure to have your company now. Coming next, I'll be joined by a British Army veteran of 16 years service who claims he was evicted by the MOD to make way for an Afghan family. That's with me, Martin Daubney. But first, here's your weather.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, very good afternoon to you. This is your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. We are going to see some thundery rain pushing into western parts as we go through later this week. All the time, eastern areas holding on to the drier weather for a little bit longer. That's because there's higher pressure towards the east of us, with weather systems trying to come in from the west. Through the rest of today, they're not making a huge amount of progress, just bringing a bit of cloud and rain to the far southwest. But actually, as we go overnight, we're going to see a bit more of that wet weather feeding in across parts of Wales and Northern Ireland in particular, and some of that is going to be heavy, could even be thundery too. Further east, clearer skies, but despite the clearer skies, it's not going to be a particularly chilly night. A pretty warm night for most of us, temperatures holding up in the mid to high teens in some places, especially towards the west. So a warm start to the day tomorrow, quite a bright one across much of Scotland. Lots of sunshine on offer here, just a little bit more cloud, some showery bursts perhaps pushing into the far west of Scotland, Dumfries, Galloway perhaps getting some of those heavier bursts. So across Northern Ireland, a cloudier start to the day, and there will be outbreaks of rain. They are going to turn heavy and thundery later, and it's a west-east split as we head further south across England and Wales. Western parts will be quite cloudy, and there will be a bit of rain pushing through at times. The best of the sunshine through tomorrow will always be across eastern areas, but even here there will be a bit more cloud developing as we go through the day as that system makes its way in. The heaviest rain and the greatest risk of thunder will be across western parts of Northern Ireland. Some torrential downpours could cause some localised issues. Temperatures for tomorrow will be a little bit higher than today, so it is going to feel pretty hot for some, particularly towards the southeast, and also quite humid again. Not as hot as it was over the weekend, however. As we go through the end of the day, more heavy thundery downpours affecting some western, northwestern parts, drier towards the east, but eventually some rain will push through towards some eastern parts later this weekend. Through the weekend, it is going to turn wetter, but also fresher for most.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The A9 between Slough and Carbridge is closed due to a road traffic incident. Drivers should find alternative routes and expect extended travel times. The eastbound M48-7 bridge is shut for maintenance with diversions in place. In Norfolk, an accident on the A47 westbound between its junctions with the A149 and the A1064 has closed all lanes. In Northamptonshire, the A14 westbound has a lane closed between Junction 2 at Kelmarsh and Junction 1 at Welford, causing 50-minute delays. And on the trains, cross-country and East Midlands railway services face major disruption at Peterborough. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Imagine having an extra £1,000 to spend each week for an entire year. £54,321 in tax-free cash could be yours. Cash to spend however you like. £54,321 in cash could be landing in your bank account this year. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show. It's not a bad brand. Yeah. Uncensored. Very, very racy tonight on the unpredictable. What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Very, very good afternoon to you. It's 4 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. On today's show, now a government super injunction has finally been lifted. The grim impact of the Afghan asylum scandal is emerging. On today's show, in a short while, I'll be joined by a British Army veteran of 16 years service who claims he was evicted by the Ministry of Defence to make way for an Afghan family. He'll tell me what thanks is that for risking my life for Queen and country.
Like Nigel Farage complaining about the high price of energy, he blames it on renewables and isn't honest with people. He isn't honest that actually it's the high price of gas that's caused the cost of living problem. And he comes on programmes like yours, he tells you the problem, he doesn't have a solution. His solution would actually play into the hands of his friend Vladimir Putin.
Renewables is all about hot air, and today the Lib Dem leader Ed Davey will blast Nigel Farage for peddling lies over renewable energy. But with net zero costing us all more and more on our bills, is Mr Davey missing the point? And in a landmark ruling, the gender-critical lesbian Lindsay Smith has won a case against Northumbria police who acted without impartiality by marching at a Newcastle Pride parade. Now, does this mean that the days of cops dancing the Macarena and the YMCA are finally behind us? I'll be joined by free speech warrior Harry Miller of Fair Cop, who was with Lindsay at that High Court victory earlier on today. And any minute now, Donald Trump will welcome the Bahrain Crown Prince after signing a huge nuclear deal with them and selling billions of dollars of arms to them. We'll bring all of that live. Well, the show, it's a pleasure to have your company. The Afghan asylum scandal, perhaps the biggest political scandal of our lifetimes. And now the true details are emerging. 16 years serving the British Armed Forces, 16 years of risking your life, living in MOD property, only to be evicted to make way for one of those asylum seekers brought to Britain under secrecy by the British government. What does that say about this country's priorities? What does that say about the deference and the respect we give to our veterans versus those who come into the country unvetted and at the taxpayer's bill? That's coming next. Stick with us. Get in touch usual ways, gbnews.com/yoursay. Now it's time for your headlines, and here's Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you. The top stories at Breaking News. Sir Keir Starmer has suspended 3 Labour MPs over breaching party discipline. According to The Times, Neil Duncan Jordan, Brian Leishman and Chris Hinchcliffe have had the party whip removed, meaning the MPs will sit as independents in the House of Commons. Senior Labour sources have not ruled out further MPs, including from earlier parliamentary intakes, being suspended later today. The move comes after 47 Labour MPs rebelled against the government's proposed cuts to welfare and forced ministers to water down their plans. The final Prime Minister's questions before summer recess saw sharp clashes this afternoon, with Kemi Badenoch accusing Sir Keir Starmer of failing to define working people.
I asked him what a modest income was. He answered what a working person is. He doesn't know what a modest income is, and even on working people, they cannot define it.
However, the Prime Minister hit back, saying after 14 years of Conservative government, they don't get to lecture anyone.
Since we've been in government, we've created 380,000 jobs, the employment rate is up and inactivity is down, the complete opposite of what we inherited.
Sir Keir Starmer says former Tory ministers have serious questions to answer about how the names of Afghans who worked with UK forces were exposed. Thousands of Afghan nationals are being relocated to the UK after their names were accidentally sent in an email in February 2022. But the leak was only discovered by the British military in August of 2023. A super injunction preventing the reporting of the mistake was imposed that year in an attempt to prevent the Taliban from finding out about the leak. The injunction was lifted yesterday. Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride says this should never happen again.
When this data was leaked, which was a terrible error on the part of the Ministry of Defence and should never, ever happen again. It's extraordinary it happened in the first place. But it did place at risk tens of thousands of Afghans who had, in many cases, bravely assisted us.
In other news, the Prevent scheme must rapidly adapt to online radicalisation, a major review has warned. It follows terror attacks by Axel Rudikabana and Sir David Amos's killer, both previously referred to the scheme. New Commissioner Lord Anderson has made 10 recommendations to overhaul Prevent's approach, including better tracking of violent ideologies and online behaviour. Inflation has unexpectedly jumped to 3.6%, the highest level in 18 months. Food prices have now surged for the third month in a row, with airfares seeing their biggest monthly hike in 7 years. Chancellor Rachel Reeves says working people are still struggling and insists there's more to do to bring prices down. The Bank of England still expected to cut interest rates in August, but experts say the inflation spike could slow further cuts. A nurse suspended after complaining about sharing a changing room with a transgender colleague has been cleared of gross misconduct. Sandy Peggy was accused of misgendering Dr. Beth Upton and of patient care failings, but a disciplinary panel found no evidence to support those claims. The decision came hours before her employment tribunal resumes in Dundee, where she's alleging harassment and victimisation. NHS 5 says no sanctions will be imposed, but the case has already cost the Health Board more than £200,000. The tribunal follows a Supreme Court ruling defining sex in law as biological. And the Co-op has confirmed every one of its 6.5 million members had their data stolen in a cyber attack. The supermarket's boss says she's devastated and the hack felt personal because of the toll on her staff. No financial data was taken, but names, addresses and contact details were accessed. 4 people have since been arrested over the hack, including a 17-year-old boy. The Co-op was one of several major retailers targeted, alongside Marks & Spencer's and Harrods. Those are the latest headlines for now. More from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.3388 and €1.1548. The price of gold is £2,486.95 per ounce, and the FTSE 100's at 8,965 points.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Thank you, Tatiana. Now, Sir Keir Starmer has suspended rebellious Labour MPs, 4 of them, from the party just 2 weeks after he suffered the biggest revolts of his premiership. Now, Neil Duncan Jordan, Brian Leishman and Chris Hinchcliffe were all stripped of the whip on Wednesday afternoon, and now it looks like there's a 4th. Joining me now is GB News' political editor, Christopher Hope. Chris, 4th name added to this list, and what do they have in common? They're all rebels. Tell us more.
That's right. So the list we have now is the following, as of today, and it's a moment of muscle flexing, fang bearing, if you like. Martin Daubney, Neil Duncan Jordan, Chris Hinchcliffe, Brian Leishman and Rachel Maskell, who was one of the ringleaders on the Benefits Rebellion. They are all been suspended. They've been openly critical of several government policies, including the welfare reforms and cuts to winter fuel allowance. It looks like, having won those battles, and they did win those battles, the government's had enough, and they want to put a lesson here, a shot across the bows. We have statements already coming in from them. Brian Leishman says he's a proud Labour member. He's committed to the party. He wants to remain a Labour MP and deliver the positive change many voters are craving. He's voted against the government on issues that because they affect people he wants to represent. across Alloa and Grangemouth. It's not his duty as an MP to make people poorer. He says it, so it goes on.
Thank you very much, Chris. Now, let's cross now to central London, where the Liberal Democrat leader, Sir Ed Davey, is having a pop at Nigel Farage about his party's energy policy.
Happened, but it cost a whole year of delay. And we all know that in the world of scientific and technological innovation, especially when it comes to AI, a year is an awfully long time. But the other reason I bring up that story is I think it encapsulates what has gone so badly wrong in government over the past year, especially when it comes to fixing the economy. Labour came into office, opened the books, and found a terrible mess left by the Conservatives. In this case, Conservative ministers had announced an £800 million supercomputer in a glittering press release full of boisterous language and self-congratulation. Just one problem, the project was completely unfunded. So faced with the challenge of finding the money to make this crucial investment, Labour chose short-term penny pinching. Just like when it came to interfuel payments or bus fares or family farms or personal independence or the national insurance hike that is hurting British businesses so badly. And there were mistakes made by a government with no vision for our economy, no strategy for growth, just a desire to find some cash to keep the Treasury spreadsheet happy no matter what. Now let me be clear, fiscal responsibility is essential. The Conservatives showed what happens when you let borrowing spiral out of control and don't grow the economy. Borrowing more than £100 billion a year just to pay the interest on our existing debts, more than the entire school budget, enough to fund the NHS for 6 months, at a time when national debt is 100% of national income. So managing the public finances carefully to bring down those borrowing costs and the national debt and to give businesses the confidence they need to invest is critically important. Yet in truth, this all started before the last Conservative government, even before the 2008 financial crisis. For decades now, Britain's long-term fiscal future has been weakened because the big budget challenges haven't been faced up to by governments or by oppositions. And I think the key reason for this is the way we do the budget itself.
That was the Liberal Democrat leader, Sir Ed Davey, believed in this speech to be saying a Liberal Democrat energy policy in service of the British people, not a Nigel Farage energy policy in service of Vladimir Putin. Let's get back into the big story of the day. Back in the studio here with Chris Hope. The witch hunt is now beginning about the Afghan asylum scandal. Who knew what, when, and should there be somebody held to account? And I believe Suella Braverman has released a statement.
That's right. About an hour ago, she gave a statement out. But let's get back to PMQs first, Martin.
Yes.
Not surprisingly, Kemi Badenoch didn't use any of her 6 questions to ask about this scandal, when it is a scandal. This bringing in thousands of Afghan interpreters under the cloak of a super injunction, costing hundreds of millions of pounds. Reform UK is furious. GB News viewers and listeners are furious. Voters are also furious. And earlier we heard from Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister. He wants the Tories to answer questions about their role over this cover-up.
We warned in opposition about Conservative management of this policy, and yesterday the Defence Secretary set out the full extent of the failings that we inherited. A major data breach, a super injunction, a secret route that has already cost hundreds of millions of pounds. Ministers who served under the party opposite have serious questions to answer about how this was ever allowed to happen.
That was Sir Keir Starmer earlier today, talking, of course, about why he thinks it's time that people answered questions in the Tory party about what happened in the Tory government. We heard from Ben Wallace overnight on the radio and also in the newspapers. Moments ago, we've heard from Suella Braverman. Statement on Afghanistan link. She says she wants to be straight talking and honest. That's what she's doing now. There's some basic facts she wants to set out. She says he wasn't a minister at the department which got this injunction going. It made a super injunction, of course, by the courts. It's on screen now for those watching at home. And she had no responsibility for officials working there. She said that she was not involved in this decision to apply for the super injunction. She says that she was against the plans to bring back so many people from Afghanistan. She was concerned about that. She was concerned about the impact on communities. But she also talked here very clearly. What's happened is outrageous, she says. It mustn't happen again. And she says it's disgraceful betrayal of the people by their own government. I feel only shame, she said, and a handful of others fought this. She was one, she says, but we failed to stop it. That's why on election night last year, she apologised for what we got wrong. And she gave a very emotional speech about the failures of the last government when she's re-elected, of course, as the MP. The cover-up was wrong, the super injunction was wrong, and the failure to stop unwanted mass migration has been unforgivable. So I'm sorry the Tory government failed. You and its leaders let you down. It wasn't good enough. It's not good enough now. We haven't heard language like that from any other senior Tory, not really even from Ben Wallace, and not really from Kemi Badenoch, who instead is asking why aren't heads rolling.
And we had Zia Youssef, of course, the director of Reform UK's Dozy Bonnet on the show earlier on. He was saying that a lot of people in the Conservative Party should hang their heads in shame. He was saying they were involved in this. Richard Tice wrote in The Telegraph today, it really does beg the question of treason. Very, very strong words. But, of course, Suella Bradman would argue she was duty-bound to obey the super injunction the same as anybody.
As indeed was John Healey, who found out about he's a Defence Secretary, found out 6 months before the man who would become Prime Minister, and he couldn't tell Keir Starmer because of the terms of that super injunction. The last part of what Suella Bradman said is fascinating. She says that this episode exposes everything wrong with the Westminster establishment. The state apparatus thinks it can hide its failures behind legal technicalities, while ordinary people, that's us, you and me, the viewers, pay the price. I understand your anger and I share it. The people who run this country, she says, so badly need to take a long, hard look at themselves. Those responsible must be held to account, and the system that enabled this cover-up must be dismantled. That is language from Reform UK. Now, she's been tipped, hasn't she, rumoured to want to be someone who may go over to Reform UK. She won't comment on this. It's obviously out there as an idea. And I think Zia Youssef, when he was here earlier, was almost nodding approvingly when I was reading out those words. Those words are what you expect a Reform UK person to say.
Because we've been waiting for a statement from Suella Bradman. We're still waiting for
others too. James Heapy, Robert Jenrick, and other senior Tories will have to do the similar mea culpa if required, or not. Will say what they knew.
And Zia Youssef was has to be said, very critical of Robert Jenrick, saying he's been chasing people for their fare evasion on the underground, but has been turning a blind eye to this. But I say again to you, Chris, that perhaps is a harsh criticism, because everybody, every journalist, every person in the entire land was bound by a super injunction, literally against the whole world.
Granted by the courts, not applied for by the government, crucially. But whether it's fought by the government or whether the government was happy to hide behind that, I don't know. It's deeply alarming there was this degree of secrecy of this, and the money being spent, the numbers of people arriving. Reform UK have now got a petition going for a national inquiry. I think I heard in PMQs, that man there, Sir Davey supporting a public inquiry into what went wrong. I mean, so you've got Lib Dems and Reform UK on the same page, and that's also interesting. But the Tories are worrying about this. I should say Kemi Badenoch, rumoured to be looking at a reshuffle of a team, denied by her aides, but we're hearing that from senior Tory MPs. She's talking to the 1922 committee tonight. We'll see what comes from that, because there are questions to be asked of her party and senior Tories, some of whom are in government, some of whom have left.
OK, fantastic, Chris. Now, stick with us. Let's move on to my next guest. I'm joined by the Labour Party MP for Blackley and Middleton South, Graham Stringer. Graham, a pleasure to have your company, as ever, my friend. Can I get your first reaction to the 4 Labour MPs today who've had the whip suspended? Do you think they deserved it? What do you know of them?
I don't know them individually very well. Certainly the 3 new ones, as far as I'm aware, I've never talk to them. I think it's always a sign of weakness if governments or any political party start expelling people and taking the whip away. It's seen immediately as a macko tough thing to do, but actually the leadership of the Labour Party should be trying to bind the party together after what's been a traumatic event with so many people, not just people who voted against the whip, which I did, on the welfare cuts, but those people are abstained. It's the time now to look deeply into policy and the principles and bring the party together, not to be expelling people, in my view.
OK, Graham Stringer, I'm joined by our political editor, Chris Hope. He's got a question for you.
Yeah, Graham Stringer, your issue of weakness there is fascinating. I mean, you and I are old enough, and probably Martin Daubney too, to remember Tony Blair and his landslides. He had battles over benefits. He had battles with Jeremy Corbyn, John McDonnell, the usual suspects from the left of the party. I don't recall him ever suspending them. It looks a bit strangely like weakness, despite the size of the party's majority in the House of Commons.
I think that's right. I mean, it is a sign of weakness suspending people, and I have disagreements with Tony Blair on a number of things, including Iraq and Afghanistan, as it happens. But he was always willing to debate and argue his corner and not try to force people into a view. He tried to win over people by debate, and he spent a long time before the vote on Iraq, when there were, I think, 139 Labour MPs voted against from memory, trying to talk those people round. I think expelling people, particularly in the context of the culture of the Labour Party, it turns them into martyrs. The party will get behind them, and it will increase divisions, not increase unity.
And I wonder, actually, Graham Stringer, if this might give 4 new recruits for Jeremy Corbyn's outfit. And we saw a poll yesterday.
I very much doubt that, but I understand why you're saying it.
Because we saw a poll yesterday putting that party, if it were to come to pass, on parity with the Labour Party on 15%. But look, Graham Stringer, can I get you back onto the big political story of the day, aside from this suspension? That is, of course, this asylum, the Afghan scandal. What's your take on what seems to be a very, very tawdry scandal?
Well, I want to say I'm shocked, but I am. But there have been so many things gone wrong with the British state recently. While one couldn't have predicted or expected this, it is just another extreme example of the failure of the state to do things properly and effectively. So it is a shocking story. I mean, I think there is an attack both by the courts and by the government on parliamentary democracy. The government do not have a right to spend money. They do not have a right to smuggle people into this country without telling Parliament. There are lots of avenues they could have used to inform Parliament, from the security committees on Privy Council terms to different people. But there should have been, Parliament should have been informed. You can't have parliamentary democracy if governments and the courts are saying the people's representatives are not to be told about this.
And Graham, the thing about these things is the truth will always out
Absolutely.
In the end. And when it does, then it comes at you hard and fast. And today, in a short while time, we're going to be speaking with a British Army soldier, 16 years service, who was kicked out of his MOD digs to make way for one of these asylum seekers from Afghanistan. Those stories start to emerge, and it really makes people say, Graham Stringer, whose side is the government on?
Well, it does. And why was it kept secret? I understand if people have worked for the British government with the army in Afghanistan, we have a moral obligation to protect them in those circumstances. But when this accidental leak took place, the Taliban apparently knew about it very quickly. And they've said to the Telegraph, at least one news outlet, that they knew about it. So who was being protected? Was it Afghans who'd worked with us, or was it the government that was being protected? My first suspicion is it was the government that was being protected. There also is a deeper feeling policy matter to this, which will, I'm sure, be done. Whatever were we doing in Afghanistan for more than 20 years? It was extraordinary that even under Tony Blair, the focus, the objectives kept changing. Originally, we went into capture bin Laden. We didn't, and we should have left straight away, within 6 months. But we then were there to educate women. We're going to produce democracy there, and all sorts of different objectives we had. We shouldn't have been there after 6 months, and then this wouldn't have happened. You can't build democracy in countries that don't want it. We were an illegitimate occupying force, in my view.
Yeah, and now we are inheriting thousands of people from countries with no democracy, with very little women's rights issues, and you reap what you sow. Graham Stringer, it's a pleasure, as always, to have your company on the show. Thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you. Now, any minute now, Donald Trump, the president of the USA, will welcome the Bahrain crown prince through those hallowed doors there at the White House after signing a nuclear energy deal worth multi-billions of dollars and creating 30,000 jobs in America. We'll bring you that next live. You with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News, Business News Channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we are proud to stand for you, for the Britain you love, for the communities you live in. That's what makes us the fearless champions of Britain, its voices and its values. Because we, at GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back. Time is 4:28 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, big changes are coming to one of Kew Gardens' most iconic landmarks, and the beautiful Victorian-era Palm House is shutting for up to 4 years for a massive £50 million renovation. But of course, it's all in the name of going green, not green palm trees, but green net zero, with bold plans to create the world's first net zero greenhouse. So is this a much needed and sympathetic makeover, or is it a load of old hot air? Well, joining me now is the head of policy at the Global Warming Policy Foundation, Harry Wilkinson. Harry, welcome to the show. Now, some people might say this is a sympathetic and much-needed makeover of a Grade 1 listed piece of world-leading architecture. Others say it's the biggest piece of virtual signalling we'll ever see this year. What's your take?
Good afternoon, Martin. Well, I was staggered to see this story this morning, and that it would take a whole 4 years to complete this renovation. You know, the Palm House is an incredible space. If you've ever visited it, you will know what an extraordinary place that is and what a treasured part of our botanical heritage it is here in the UK. But to put this into context, the £50 million cost of making this Palm House green is equivalent to 6 months of running the whole of Kew Gardens. And I think people who have seen their ticket price now rise to £25 to visit Kew will be asking why they're spending a whole half year of operating costs on just this project. And they'll be desperate to visit it before it closes for this most extraordinary length of time. But I think this case is really indicative of that disconnect between our elite institutions and the public priorities. I think the public would rather they invested this money in conservation and looking after the gardens, and maybe making it cheaper for ordinary members of the public to visit. But instead, as we see so many institutions they're obsessed with net zero. They're obsessed with spending vast quantities of people's money on these harebrained green schemes.
You know, Harry Wilkinson, what bothers me about this is, of course, they're replacing the gas boilers with heat pumps. That's a given. But, you know, anybody who lives in a listed building, you can't even change the letterbox. You can't even change the doorknob without planning permission. This is a globally significant piece of Victoriana, Grade 1 listed. They're allowed to rip the entire thing apart, but double glazing it.
Exactly. You know, it's so hard to get things done in this country. There's so many regulations that are holding back all the sorts of developments that we need to get growth going again in this country. But when it comes to net zero, there's a special green light. And, you know, we see this in many different cases. An example is air conditioning. Just as the country is actually getting hotter, you know, the government is making it really difficult for people to install essential air conditioning in new homes. But if you want a heat pump, you know, that's going to be forced on you, and you're going to have that regardless, even though that you can have, you know, heat pumps that can also be air conditioning that people aren't even able to use because of these insane regulations. So we need common sense here, and we need governments and institutions that are focused on doing their core activities and not really putting the net zero agenda really before everything else.
Yeah, and Harry, you know, call me a cynic, but 50 million quid in 4 years. HS2, anybody? I suspect how long is a piece of string, and we're going to miss out on seeing a wonderful piece of British heritage for 4 years. But as you say, at the Church of Net Zero, anything is possible. Thank you very much, Harry Wilkinson, the head of policy at the Global Warming Policy Foundation. Now, lots more still to come between now and 5 o'clock, including as the government super injunction has been lifted, the grim impact of the Afghan asylum scandal is emerging. A former RAF fighter pilot instructor joins me next for his take. He's got targets locked on Ben Wallace. But first, here's your latest news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you. The headlines at 4:30. Sir Keir Starmer has suspended 4 Labour MPs over breaching party discipline. Rachel Maskell, Neil Duncan-Jordan, Brian Leishman and Chris Hinchcliffe have had the party whip removed, meaning the MPs will sit as independents in the House of Commons. The final Prime Minister's questions before summer recess saw sharp clashes this afternoon, with Kemi Badenoch accusing Sir Keir Starmer of failing to define working people.
I asked him what a modest income was. He answered what a working person is. He doesn't know what a modest income is, and even on working people, they cannot define it.
The Prime Minister hit back, saying after 14 years of Conservative government, they don't get to lecture anyone.
Since we've been in government, we've created 380,000 jobs, the employment rate is up and inactivity is down, the complete opposite of what we inherited.
Sir Keir Starmer says the Tories have serious questions to answer over what he called a major data breach exposing thousands of Afghans who helped UK forces. The leak led to a secret £850 million relocation scheme. Thousands of Afghans are now being moved to the UK. Those are the headlines for now. More news at 5 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello, very good afternoon to you. This is your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. We are going to see some thundery rain pushing into western parts as we go through later this week. All the time, eastern areas holding on to the drier weather for a little bit longer. That's because there's higher pressure towards the east of us, with weather systems trying to come in from the west. Through the rest of today, they're not making a huge amount of progress, just bringing a bit of cloud and rain to the far southwest. But actually, as we go overnight, we're going to see a bit more of that wet weather feeding in across parts of Wales and Northern Ireland in particular, and some of that is going to be heavy, could even be thundery too. Further east, clearer skies, but despite the clearer skies, it's not going to be particularly chilly night. A pretty warm night for most of us, temperatures holding up in the mid to high teens in some places, especially towards the west. So a warm start to the day tomorrow, quite a bright one across much of Scotland. Lots of sunshine on offer here, just a little bit more cloud, some showery bursts perhaps pushing into the far west of Scotland, Dumfries, Galloway perhaps getting some of those heavier bursts. So across Northern Ireland, a cloudier start to the day, and there will be outbreaks of rain. They are going to turn heavy and thundery later, and it's a west-east split as we head further south across England and Wales. Western parts will be quite cloudy, and there will be a bit of rain pushing through at times. The best of the sunshine through tomorrow will always be across eastern areas, but even here there will be a bit more cloud developing as we go through the day as that system makes its way in. The heaviest rain and the greatest risk of thunder will be across western parts of Northern Ireland. Some torrential downpours could cause some localised issues. Temperatures for tomorrow will be a little bit higher than today, so it is going to feel pretty hot for some, particularly towards the southeast, and also quite humid again. Not as hot as it was over the weekend, however. As we go through the end of the day, more heavy thundery downpours affecting some western, northwestern parts, drier towards the east, but eventually some rain will push through towards some eastern parts later this weekend. Through the weekend, it is going to turn wetter, but also fresher for most.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Currently, the A9 is closed between Slough and Carbridge due to a road incident, urging drivers to seek other routes and expect delays. On the Severn Bridge, eastbound M48 traffic is rerouted due to roadworks, with diversions now in effect. In Norfolk, a westbound A47 incident between the A149 and A1064 has closed all lanes. Expect delays on the A14 westbound between Junction 2 at Kelmarsh and Junction 1 at Welford, where a collision affects one lane. And on the trains, significant disruptions are impacting cross-country and East Midlands railway services at Peterborough. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. Time is 4:37. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now let's return now to today's top story, which is, of course, that the government has been running a secret resettlement scheme for thousands of Afghan nationals after a major data leak. The world's most expensive email cost the taxpayer in Britain £850 million and rising, could go to billions. Now, the former Defence Secretary Ben Wallace says he makes no apology for seeking the injunction and even said he'd do the same thing all over again. Well, let's get the thoughts now of Tim Davies, a former RAF fighter pilot and instructor and a great friend of the show. Tim, you're a legend and you've been very outspoken on Ben Wallace. You believe things started to go wrong when he was put in charge.
Yeah, I did actually. Yeah, I don't hide away from it. I think we have to be accountable. There were some things that Ben did. There was a steady hand in a difficult time, of course. But one thing that Ben did do was drive diversity, equity and inclusion into the military at what I would say was quite a volatile time. And what that did was promote entirely the wrong type of people. The people, these are the guys that would, you wouldn't really talk to at school. And that allowed them to, virtual signal their approval of the little people, as it were, and rank themselves up into the higher echelons. And that's what we got, unfortunately, now, is a lot of people who shouldn't actually be there. That's the problem I've got with Ben Wallace.
And Tim Davies, what do you make of now the impact is becoming abundantly clear? In about half an hour's time, we're going to have a former serviceman, 16 years he served. He was kicked off of his MOD lodgings to make way for one of these Afghan families brought over. What kind of country is it saying we are, Tim Davies, when we're kicking out our own servicemen to put Afghan families in their digs?
Well, I will tell you, Martin Daubney, what kind of country we are, seeing as you've asked the question, and thank you for doing so. We're a very liberal country, post-Second World War, of course. We are post-colonial. We're racked with white guilt. It's exactly a multiculturalism is a hot pot, a mix of all different cultures. And the problem that we've got is we've got the obsequious, sycophantic people in our main government, no matter which side they're on, and they believe that everyone's equal, of course. Now, the problem is, if we're equal to every other culture around the world, which I would put to you that we are not, by the way, then, of course, when immigrants come here...
OK, Tim, I have to interject. Stay there, because we've got to go to the White House, where Donald Trump is hosting the Prime Minister and the Crown Prince of Bahrain. There he is. He's just arrived. This is meant to be a multi-billion-dollar deal around nuclear energy and armaments. Donald Trump claims this is going to create 30,000 jobs, part of his charm offensive across the Middle East. Just got there in the nick of time. That's the Crown Prince of Bahrain entering the White House. Let's go back now to Tim Davies. Tim, I'm sure you don't mind being interjected there by Donald J. Trump. You're just getting warmed up. Tell us more.
I will call Donald in a minute and I will tell him what you have done. Right, the problem I've got with Ben here, we're talking about this liberal country, and the issue is that if everyone's equal to each other, of course, then it means that when we bring immigrants in, they're less equal, of course. Therefore, we can say, oh, the poor little immigrant. This is where the racism comes from, our elites. The elites are racist, not the British people. The elites are racist because they believe these immigrants aren't as good as the rest of the people. Therefore, they need handouts. They need service accommodation. They need jobs. They need all these things because, of course, they can't get them on their own. What is that if nothing but racism? These people apparently aren't as good as us. Now, the problem with Ben Wallace, I found a tweet that he sent back in 2020. You'll like this a lot. He actually said, this was on the 6th of June, 2020. No word of a lie, you can find it. He said, 76 years ago, British, Commonwealth, French and US soldiers landed on the Normandy beaches. Thousands died. They did so to end fascism. They did so that black lives would matter. That is our Defence Secretary saying that. And if you think this has not been orchestrated from the very top for a very prolonged period of time, well, it has been. And this is the problem that we have today with government. They do not respect the British people. And it's about time we did something about it, Martin.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think people are getting very, very fed up with this, Tim Davies. And when it's precipitated by asylum hotels, we're seeing increasing protests against them. We're seeing the police clamping down on that. We're seeing servicemen on our streets. A lot of people, Tim Davies, are saying we are losing our way and we are simply putting British people at the back of the queue.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I've had people write to me, and I haven't seen anyone turfed out their accommodation before. So that's a new one on me, Martin. You're good to get that story. But look, I've heard people that were about to go into accommodation, people with young families that will then postpone, pause, or moved great distances away from their original accommodation that they were planned. As it turns out, there were Afghan nationals put into that accommodation. I think that is fundamentally wrong. I put British people first. What country doesn't put its British people? What country doesn't put its people first? This is what I have a big issue with, because when we stop doing that, then who do you fight for, Martin, when you join the military? What are you fighting for? You're fighting for a mixture, a multicultural person. I mean, it doesn't even make sense. I don't know why anyone would join. And more to the point, I don't know why anyone would stay.
Tim Davies, you know, what's been fascinating to learn as all the facts start to emerge now, we learned that Pakistan refused to take the Afghan asylum seekers Iran refused to take the Afghan asylum seekers, and you mentioned that thing about liberal guilt. I wonder if there's a bit of white saviour syndrome going on here. It's like Britain feels it has to interject, it has to be that saviour without anybody in the country ever being consulted.
Yeah, and of course we weren't there. You know, it's not a fault of me, is it? It's not a fault of you. This is in times past. So why are the young today who now can't get onto the housing ladder because of the increased immigration? Why are the mothers with young children that can't get hospital or doctor's appointment? Why have they got to suffer for things that happened in the past? When actually we went around there, and entirely, if you look at the colonies and everything, a lot of the people out there actually felt it was better to have the British presence in there. And if you remember, this is the dangers we've got right now, Mike, because back in 1920, 25% of the world was actually governed by Great Britain. I mean, this is what I warn people about. Just be very careful what you're happening to this island. We do it all again.
Do you think, Tim Davies, I mean, do you think, though, there is a case to make for, I think it was Johnny Mercer who said there's around about 1,000 Afghans that actually fought alongside Britons in Afghanistan. There's a case to be made that we should have taken the ones of that nature, but what happened is, because of this ridiculous data leak, it meant we had to take the whole package, and that's the problem.
Look, if you want people to side with British forces and help them out in the future, you've got to look after them. All right, so we're doing the right thing. It's costing us an absolute fortune. Fair enough. They're going to say lessons have learned. Let's have an inquiry, because then we don't really have to talk about it. We haven't got to really admit that we made mistakes. The MOD is an absolute joke, by the way. It should be ripped apart by Dominic Cummings and rebuilt from the outside in, as far as I'm concerned. But look, that's the problem. So yes, suck it up. We've got to do it, but not at the expense of British people. That's my argument. All right. So when do we? This is an illness within our society, and I can't see it getting any better. And I can feel the frustration, Mike. And I can feel the anger of the good British men and women out there, and I think they're absolutely justified. You know, unfortunately, I think we're leading down to somewhere where this country hasn't been for a very long time.
OK, Tim Davies, thank you very much for being so forthright. And again, sorry to be interrupted there by Donald Trump, but hey, I have to pull rank. Thank you very much, Tim Davies. Always a pleasure. Now, the former, we've got a statement to read here. Ben Wallace has previously said that the armed forces are at their strongest when their people are diverse. And the former Defence Secretary also said he takes complete responsibility for the catastrophic data breach at the MOD, and added the decision to apply for the gagging order was not a cover-up, and that if the leak had been reported, it would have put in peril those we needed to help out. Now, if in search of some holiday sun this year, then here is the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
There's the risk of some more heavy, thundery downpours affecting eastern parts of Europe as we go through the rest of this week. But across western areas towards the Canary Islands, Madeira, across much of Spain and Portugal, it's largely fine on Thursday. Decent amount of sunshine and feeling very warm or hot in that sunshine as well. Some showery rain likely across much of Italy, drier towards the south, but across parts of Greece, Turkey, there will be a fair few showers on offer. A drier theme for many through the end of the week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
For working class families, what are the fundamentals that they are looking for? They're looking for good housing, they're looking for good schools, they're looking for good jobs that give them a fair day's wage for a fair day's graft, they're looking for a strong NHS, and they're looking for safe communities to live in. When you have all of those foundations in place, then it means that children, young people, they can flourish, they can do well alongside their parents and their grandparents. And I think if you look at what this Labour government has done, we're 10 months into a 5-year programme here, by the way, but in the first 10 months of this new Labour government, they have put major policy reforms in place across all 5 of those key foundations for working class families. And so I'm confident that we're starting to see some of it here in Basildon, where Basildon is starting to get better again. I'm confident that by the end of this Parliament, because of what the government is doing now, we will start to see some positive changes for working class families.
OK, Christo, what do you make of it?
I think that Bridget Phillipson makes a very fair point when she says that white working class families and those peoples are being left behind. But unfortunately, her actions as Education Secretary don't align with what I believe are these completely hollow words. So, for instance, we've seen white working class boys particularly, but now girls, falling behind in education for absolutely years. So why Bridget Phillipson would then bring in a policy that is seeing, by the latest figures, 13,000 private school pupils entering the state school system, why on earth she would bring in that kind of policy, whilst then having the audacity to say that she's worried about white working class pupils not doing so well, is beyond me.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 10 to 5 and you're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, a Spanish footballer has been lambasted after reportedly hiring dwarves as entertainers at his 18th birthday party. Now, a disability group has even threatened legal action, saying that the dignity and the rights of people with dwarfism cannot be a source of amusement under any circumstance. Well, I'm delighted to say now I'm joined by the American comedian and a real-life dwarf, Tanya Lee Davis. Tanya, a pleasure to have your company. Do you know, I've always thought in these circumstances there's a lot of people taking offence on behalf of dwarves, often whom they're paid well and they want to do this work. What's your take?
100% behind you on that. It's usually people that are average size that are offended on behalf of little people. And I've got that before, and it's like, stay in your own lane, first of all. Being hired for an 18th boy's birthday party? Where do I sign up? I'm sure he can afford to pay me some good bucks, so let's do this. I'm upset I didn't get the call.
Do you know, it's so refreshing to hear that. You know, in a previous life, I used to be a magazine editor, and we used to hire dwarves. One of them was an Ewok in the Star Wars films, and they were absolutely fantastic people. We got on really, really well, and they told me they were. And they were really, really fed up of the fact that they were told they couldn't work by big people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are some little people organizations that, get offended on behalf as well. But, the thing is, it's personal choice, right? These people that are getting hired for these celebrity parties, they're there because they're getting paid and they want to be there. They're not being forced.
Tanya, I'm really sorry. I have to cut you short because we have to go to the White House now, where Donald Trump is hosting the Crown Prince of Bahrain.
The relationship that exists between our two countries. We will be discussing security issues, we'll be discussing trade and investment, which is very important. We're very happy to be announcing $17 billion worth of deals that are coming to the United States, and this is real. This isn't.
It's real money.
These aren't fake deals. These are real deals.
They don't have to borrow the money.
We don't have to borrow it. It's coming in, and it only builds upon a legacy that we're very proud of. We have had a relationship in the civil side between our two countries since 1893, and formally since 1948. So may it long continue, and we look forward to many, many more years of productive partnership. Thank you, Mr. President.
We will have
you
that.
honor us.
We will have that indeed. We'll have many good years, and I'd say right now is your top year, and we appreciate the investment. It's a great. We left, as you know, Saudi Arabia. We were just there in Saudi Arabia, and we. Qatar was so great. The leader was great. We had UAE, and we had a couple of other visits, but all great places, and we left with $5.1 trillion of investment, and they all want to be investing in the United States. We have, I think we have over $16 trillion of investment coming in, which is a record, and we're only a little bit into the year. And let's say the first 2 months I sort of took it easy because we had to fix up the Oval Office. I had to devote my time to fixing it up. But now we had to fix up our country. So we have, I think everyone is saying we have the hottest country now anywhere in the world. We were dead a year ago. We are a dead country. And now we have the hottest country anywhere in the world. And it's a great honor to have you here.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Any questions?
Any comments on the developments in Syria at the moment?
Well, I can comment. I think I'll ask Marco to say a few words on Syria.
Yeah, it's complicated, obviously. These are historic, long-time rivalries between different groups in the southwest of Syria, Bedouins, the Druze community, and it led to an unfortunate situation and a misunderstanding, it looks like, between the Israeli side and the Syrian side. So we've been engaged with them all morning long and all night long with both sides, and we think we're on our way towards a real de-escalation and then hopefully get back on track in helping Syria build a country and arriving at a situation there in the Middle East is far more stable. So in the next few hours, we hope to see some real progress to end what you've been seeing over the last couple hours.
Mr. President, Jerome Powell, do you have plans, or if you're back considering firing Jerome Powell, and what's your justification if you're thinking about this to do this?
Too late. He's always been too late. Hence his nickname, Too Late. He should have cut interest rates a long time ago. Europe has cut them 10 times in the short period of time, and we cut them none. The only time he cut them was just before the election to try and help Kamala or Biden, whoever the hell it was, because nobody really knew. Obviously, that didn't work, but he tried to cut them for the Democrats, Kamala, and how did that work out? You'll tell me. It didn't work out too well, did it? But I think he does a terrible job. He's costing us a lot of money, and we fight through it. It's almost, the country's become so successful that it doesn't have a big impact, but it does hurt people wanting to get a mortgage. People want to buy a house. He's a terrible Fed chair. I was surprised he was appointed. I was surprised, frankly, that Biden put him in and extended him, but they did. So, no, we're not planning on doing anything. We're very concerned. He's doing a little renovation for $2.5 billion of the Fed, building a renovation, and they have a close to $900 million cost overrun, and it's a shame. But the biggest cost overrun is the cost overrun for interest rates, because we should be paying 3 points lower. And we would save $1 trillion a year in interest if that were the case. And all it is the stroke of a pen. And that goes for his board, too, because his board is not doing the job, because they should try and rein this guy in. So he's doing a lousy job. But no, I'm not talking about that. Fortunately, we get to make a change in the next, 8 months or so. And we'll pick somebody that's good, and we'll pick somebody. I just want a fair job. We want to see lower interest rates. Our country deserves it. We're making a lot of money. We're doing great as a country. We have no inflation, record stock market, record business, record everything. Everything's a record now. We had the worst inflation in history under Biden, and now we have almost no inflation. We've done a great job, and we should have the interest rates cut.
So you're saying today that Scott Bessent, you're so happy with him at Treasury that he's not your top option to replace Jerome Powell, whenever that may be, whenever you decide what you want to do with him.
Scott's doing a very good job. I'm very happy with Scott.
Is Kevin Hassett on the top of your list?
Kevin's somebody we'd consider. Kevin is fantastic, too. We have a lot of good people for that job. It's not a tough job, to be honest. Assuming you're smart, it's not a tough job. If you're a dummy, then I guess it's a tough job. But it might be one of the easiest jobs I've ever seen. And now on top of it, he's building a close to $3 billion little nest egg for himself. He's not doing the right job. We should be saving $1 trillion a year in interest. When he talks about cost, we should be saving. Think of it, $1 trillion a year. Add that with the tariffs and everything else. But he just doesn't want. He's a knucklehead. But we'll see how that. We'll see how he's listening to this. That's a strange conversation, but we like to say it like it is. But we have a lot of people that want that job very badly, and I'm only interested in low-interest people, frankly, because you don't need. I know. So they had the 71 different economists and people experts that they picked about a month ago. I was the only one, along with one person from maybe the Wharton School of Finance. The two of us got it right. 69 people, including Powell, got it wrong. And he wants to hire thousands of new people to help him decide where we're going in the future. It only takes one good mind. It doesn't take 5,000 good minds. So they're expanding the Fed. It's the dumbest thing I've heard of. But it's very autonomous.
Just to follow up on that, sir, are you completely ruling out the idea of firing Jerome Powell?
I don't rule out anything, but I think it's highly unlikely unless he has to leave for fraud. I mean, it's possible there's fraud involved with the $2.7 billion renovation. This is a renovation. How do you spend $2.7 billion? And he didn't have proper clearance, et cetera, et cetera. So that's going on. So there could be something to that, but I think he's not doing a good job. He's got a very easy job to do. You know what he has to do? Lower interest rates.
Are going to fire him? Have you drafted a letter?
I haven't drafted a letter.
So you didn't show a letter to Republican lawmakers last night?
No, I talked about the concept of fire him. I said, what do you think? Almost every one of them said I should. But I'm more conservative than they are.
Mr. President,
no, we talked about it. In fact, we had 11 of the 12 people here yesterday, for a very big bill having to do with crypto, et cetera. And other things, and all of the votes are going with us, every single vote. But during the conversation, when we were talking about it, I asked, what would you do about that? They all said we'd fire him.
Mr. President, thank you for taking the question, sir. You were in Pennsylvania yesterday. You unveiled $92 billion worth of investments. One of those jumped out, though, $15 billion in Homer City to build the largest natural gas power plant ever. I was at the rally where you told Homer City residents that you would not forget them when the biggest coal plant in Pennsylvania closed down. You delivered for them yesterday. What message do you have to those residents?
Well, I'm happy. Homer City, I was there, and I said, I'm going to produce something, I don't know what, because they had shut down this massive coal plant, one of the biggest in the country. And it was just purchased by the gentleman that you met yesterday, a very substantial man. I don't know if he's maybe not as substantial as you, I'm not sure. But he's pretty substantial. You know who I'm talking about. And they're going to spend billions of dollars on rebuilding it. And it's going to be the largest plant of its kind in the world, I believe, actually in the world. And it's going to be great. So we really fulfilled that promise to Homer City. But it's to Pennsylvania, basically. I won Pennsylvania, and very conclusively won Pennsylvania. So I owe them a big debt of gratitude. But thank you for bringing that up. We raised 92. It's actually going over 100. So it'll be over $100 billion to be invested in Pennsylvania. It was Pennsylvania Energy Project. So we had, everybody was there. Larry Fink was there. I mean, everybody was there and done a great job. The senator did a great job. And we were very proud. That was a great meeting yesterday. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, for each of you, so for the Crown Prince, are you planning on taking any of the Patriot missiles that you're going to receive from the United States and divert those to help Ukraine?
We have no current plans, as we have an operational requirement inside Bahrain to keep them there for the present time.
He's got plenty of them, too.
And Mr. President, on the fentanyl bill,
they're wonderful. They're wonderful pieces of kit.
They work very well.
American technology is the best.
Yep.
And on the fentanyl bill that you're signing.
That's maybe the most important part of this. He has his choice of everything, and we make the best military equipment by far in the world. There's nothing close, right?
Bar none.
Yeah. Thank you.
And on the fentanyl bill that you're signing today, do you hope that that's going to restart law enforcement cooperation with China on getting the fentanyl?
Yeah, I think China's been helping out. I mean, it's been a terrible situation for many years with fentanyl, but since I came here, we're talking to them, and they're making big steps. They're also, as you know, being penalized. You know that, right? They're being penalized with tariffs because of the fentanyl, but they want to do something. We'll see what happens.
Mr. President,
Thank you, Mr. President. An American from Tampa was beaten to death. He was killed by Israeli settlers in the West Bank. His family has been calling on you to help prosecute his killers. Are you going to do that? An American from Tampa?
Yeah, your first sentence is really, go ahead.
An American citizen from Tampa, Florida, has been killed in the West Bank. His family has been asking on you to prosecute him. Are you going to help finding his
Yeah, well, so first of all, if you've seen yesterday, Ambassador Huckabee has asked the Israelis to conduct an investigation. We want to get all the information about who was involved. We protect all American citizens anywhere in the world, especially if they're unjustly murdered or killed. So we're gathering more information, but I hope you saw yesterday Ambassador Huckabee in Israel asked the Israeli authorities to produce an investigation and concrete information about who was responsible for his murder.
They're reporting that tomorrow. We have a meeting on it. They're going to be reporting that to me.
Yeah. Do you think that the Gulf area now is more secure, and do you believe that a negotiation with Iran is necessary at this stage?
Well, I definitely believe that the volatility of the situation has been reduced. And we didn't know where it was going to go on the Sunday. We were very glad when we found out on the Monday. Let me put it that way. And should the Iranians want to negotiate, I believe the ball's in their court. That is the true reality of where we stand today. They are the ones that stand to benefit from a negotiation.
And they do. They want to negotiate. They want to negotiate badly. We're in no rush because, we said we could have made a deal. They should have made a deal. And then we bombed the hell out of their various places. We're in no rush, but if they want to negotiate, we're here. Yeah.
Mr. President, I know you want to move past all this intrigue over the Epstein files, but I do want to ask you to clarify something you said this morning. You said this was all a hoax. Has your Attorney General told you this was a hoax? What evidence have you seen of that?
It's not the Attorney General, no. I know it's a hoax. It's started by Democrats. It's been run by the Democrats for 4 years. You had Christopher Wray and these characters and Comey before him. And it's a bad group. It started, actually, look at the Steele dossier that turned out to be a total hoax. The 51 agents, the intelligence, so-called intelligence agents, it was a hoax. It's all been a big hoax. It's perpetrated by the Democrats. And some stupid Republicans and foolish Republicans fall into the net. And so they try and do the Democrats' work. The Democrats are good for nothing other than these hoaxes. They're bad for policy. They're bad for picking candidates that can get elected. Like in New York, we have a communist running. He may get elected too, actually, but he'll destroy the city. No, it's I call it the Epstein hoax. It takes a lot of time and effort. Instead of talking about the great achievements, we've had a great gentleman. Yesterday, as you know, went on CNBC and he made the statement that Trump may go down as the greatest president of all in the United States. And instead of talking about the things we've achieved, we've had tremendous achievement. They're wasting their time with a guy who obviously had some very serious problems, who died 3-4 years ago. I'd rather talk about the success we have with the economy, the best we've ever had, and all of the things we've done, including in the Middle East. I mean, you see it. Instead, they want to talk about the Epstein hoax. And the sad part is it's people that are really doing the Democrats' work. They're stupid people. Yeah, go ahead.
Coming into this meeting that you planned on firing Fed Chair Jay Powell. Markets reacted.
Is that right? Those are reports, but they're not true.
So what would be useful to know, are you committed to picking someone from the outside? Are you going to interview individuals that are
so
on the
many
board
people
right
that
now?
want that job. I have people that I've known a long time. They're calling me, begging for the job. You know what you need there? A smart person with common sense, but you need a very smart person for that job. I think it's one of the easiest jobs in government. You show up once a month and you make a statement about where the economy's going. and we're going to raise or lower interest rates. It's probably the easiest job I've ever seen. That's why I'm trying to figure out, why does he want to expand and add more people? He's going to add more economists to tell him what to do. But the economists, I was right. All the economists were wrong. They admitted it. They admitted it this morning. Quiet. Go ahead.
Mr. President, on Jerome Powell, you mentioned fraud in an earlier answer. Are you saying you want to investigate the Fed chair for fraud related to this renovation?
Well, I think he's already under investigation. He spent far more money than he was supposed to on rebuilding. I didn't see him as being the kind of guy that would want to have parks, rooftop parks and everything else on top of buildings. But who wants to spend that money for the Fed? The Fed is supposed to sit there and say where interest rates are going and a couple of other very easy things to do. And he spent $2.5 billion. I think he's got some problems.
Mr. President, thank you, sir. You also reported a monthly surplus in the month of June, $27 billion. A ton of money. With these new tariff rates coming into effect on August 1st, we're going to be bringing in even more tariff revenue specifically. How much revenue do you think we can consistently bring in from these tariffs, and how big of a game changer is this, not only for the economy, but also fiscal responsibility?
Well, we're going to be bringing in, already we've brought in over $100 billion. We'll be bringing in hundreds of billions of dollars. And the tariffs really haven't kicked in that much other than automobiles and steel. August 1st is a big day. August 1st is when very substantial money comes into our country. We've made deals with a lot of great places, but we had one yesterday, that was announced. We have another one coming up, maybe with India. I don't know. We're in negotiation. When I send out a letter, that's a deal. In other words, that's a deal. They don't want to ever say that. Oh, how many deals have you made? The best deal we can make is to send out a letter. And the letter says that you'll pay 30%, 35%, 25%, 20%, in one case 50%, Brazil. And because what they're doing to their former president is disgraceful. I know the former president. He fought like hell for the people of Brazil, that I can tell you. And I believe he's an honest man. I think what they're doing to him is terrible. So, we have some pretty good deals to announce, but every time we send out a letter, that's the deal. The big one really is going to be on the 150 countries that we're really not negotiating with, and they're smaller. We don't do much business with them. Because you have a lot of countries, you have over 200 countries, and a lot of people don't know this, but we'll have well over 150 countries that we're just going to send a notice of payment out, and the notice of payment is going to say what the tariff, and it's all going to be the same for everyone, for that group. They don't, they're not big countries, and they don't do that much business. It's not like the ones that we've agreed with, like China, like Japan, where we're negotiating with them, but I think probably we'll live by the letter with Japan. We're very close to a deal with India where they open it up. Indonesia yesterday was, it wasn't an open country, now it is. And they have tremendous copper, quality copper, and probably the most copper. And we made a deal with Indonesia. We pay no tariff, zero, and we have total access to trade. That's a phenomenal deal for our companies. And we've agreed with them, as you know, on 19%. They pay 19%. And it's a good deal for them, and it's a good deal for us in that case. But we have a number of them coming up. But overall, we're doing well, and we're taking in a lot of money, a lot of money. We have the number one, we have the most oil of any country in the world, even more than them, which is hard to believe. But we have a little larger piece of land, right?
We do, sir.
But we're number one in the world in oil, and we're drilling, and today it hit $64 a barrel, which is great, and that'll help stop wars, actually. If you want to know the truth, it's going to help stop wars, and we hope to get it down a little bit more. But we have oil down to $2, $2.25, $2.50 in numerous states. We hit one at $1.98 a gallon, and that's a great thing. That's one of the reasons that inflation's in check. When you can do that, you stop the inflation. What Biden did is he ended our policies, went to his policies. He doesn't have a policy. some lunatic around the desk had a policy. Whoever operated the auto pen had a policy, which is, by the way, I think the biggest scandal. That's the scandal they should be talking about, not Jeffrey Epstein. The scandal you should be talking about is the auto pen, because I think it's the biggest scandal, one of them in American history. So the economy is doing really well, and people are seeing it. Yeah.
Will you ask Attorney General Pam Bondi to release more documents to finally put this controversy to bed?
Yeah, whatever's credible, she can release. If a document is credible, if a document's there that is credible, she can release. I think it's good. But it's just really, it's just a subject. He's dead. He's gone, and all it is the Republicans. Certain Republicans got duped by the Democrats, and they're following a Democrat playbook. And no different than Russia, and all the other hoaxes. They're started by the Democrats, and some Republicans, in this case I was surprised, but they got duped.
But have you talked about it with her the last week?
President, first of all, remember on your high-ranking officials, whether it's been your FBI director or Pam Bondi, they have made some inconsistent statements in the past. You've had...
Well, I don't know. I can't speak about him, but I can say that Pam Bondi, I really think that she's done very good. She says, I gave you all the credible information. And if she finds any more credible information, she'll give that too. What more can she do than that? I mean, honestly, what more can she do? And we do have bigger problems. You know, we have problems with millions of illegal people that came in here, and they're killers and murderers. We have 11,888 murderers that were allowed into our country by Biden, sleepy Joe Biden, stupid Joe Biden. He allowed them into our country. And you know what? We got to do something about it. She's got a lot of things she's working on. And, you know, it's very sad that somebody can be waylaid, that just get waylaid. But I think she's doing a great job, President.
In your Truth Social this morning, you mentioned past supporters when you were talking about the Epstein issue. Does that mean that you're effectively disowning any supporters who are now calling...
I lost a lot of faith in certain people, yeah. I lost, because they got duped by the Democrats. The Democrats are good for nothing. They've done a terrible job. They almost destroyed our country. If I didn't get elected, all these numbers you're hearing about, they found $25 billion and another 25 is coming in, and hundreds of billions of dollars is pouring into our country. And we just got the biggest tax cut in history. We just got the biggest regulation cuts in history. There'll be no tax on tips. There'll be no tax on Social Security. There'll be no tax on overtime. There'll be no tax on so many other things. You're allowed to deduct your interest from a car payment. That's never happened before. You borrow interest. You borrow money to buy a car if the car is made in America. And by the way, factories are being built all over America. Car factories, AI factories. But you get a deduction on your interest. Nobody ever thought of that before. It never happened before. And, you know, these are the things that they should be talking about. The Big Beautiful Bill is one of the greatest pieces of legislation ever in this country. And the Democrats have nothing to combat it. So they say, oh, it's death. Oh, that's good. And then they give it to the fake news, which is you and a few others. And the fake news talks about the bill is death. The bill is actually life. The bill is life, and it saves our country. This bill is incredible. Look at the results already. So we have $16 trillion being invested in our country. And this great gentleman and his family just came in with another billions of dollars. And if he didn't like the country, if he didn't like where we were going, he's very smart. He'd come, maybe he wouldn't even come. I think maybe he wouldn't even come. You'd save your time. But, because, you know, it's one of those things. But if he didn't like where this country was, he wouldn't be investing billions of dollars in this country. But think of it, $16 trillion, more than has ever been even contemplated before. And we haven't even started yet. So that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the success. And the Democrats have nothing to show for what they do. They almost destroyed. They allowed 25 million people to come into our country, gang members, jailbirds, from all over the world, not South America, from all over the world. They allowed them to come into our country, from mental institutions, insane asylums, just walk right through. They couldn't come into your country. They couldn't come into any country in the world except our country. And they came in from the worst places, gang members, drug dealers. They all came in. Turn it off, please. They all came in, and I'm doing something about it. We have it under check right now. We got rid of a lot of the murderers already. Some of them we put in our prisons because they're so bad we don't want to take a chance in putting them in a foreign prison and have them come back. But we've done a great job. Our country's in great shape. We literally have the hottest country anywhere in the world right now. And it's true what the king said, what a lot of people said. We were a dead country. 1 year ago, we were a dead country. We were laughed at all over the world. We had Afghanistan with that horrible embarrassment, most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. Look what happened with Russia and Ukraine. That should have never happened. Look what happened with Israel. That would have never happened. Hamas had no money. Iran had no money. There was no money to do an attack like that. All these things that happened that wouldn't have happened if you had good leadership. And that's what you should be talking about. Thank you very much, everybody.
And that was Donald Trump there with the Crown Prince of Bahrain, the latest world leader to make it into that hallowed Oval Office. Top lines from that: this is about a $17 billion investment into the United States of America between Gulf Air and Boeing, $7 billion worth of 12 aircraft, and also a nuclear deal. It's also cementing political alliances across the Middle East to help support Israel and put the pressure on Iran. But I'm joined in the studio by Catherine Fawcett, our political correspondent. The journalists in that room were really only asking questions about one thing, and that is the story that's gripped the world, the Jeffrey Epstein files. Now, Donald Trump has been saying this is the hoax. There's nothing to see here. This will all go away. The media aren't buying that. The public aren't buying that. And it's even greatly dividing Republican circles.
Yes, Donald Trump might like this to go away. I think there is zero chance of that happening. The Attorney General, Pam Bondi, has got these files, but the Justice Department last month declined to release details. Now, Donald Trump saying today, look, he's dead, he's gone, nothing to see here. He talked about stupid people, he said, quote, doing the Democrats' work. But there is a real split. It's not just Democrats that want to see these files. There's plenty of Republicans. There's a real split here. And yes, Donald Trump is very keen to talk about something else, calling it a hoax, all the rest of it. But you saw question after question after question. People are understandably fascinated by Jeffrey Epstein, horrific, sexual predator, jailed, took his own life. So many unanswered questions. That
or did he? Because some people believe that wasn't the case.
Lots of people believe that again, yes, we don't know. But this super rich lifestyle, he had incredibly famous friends, very, very many famous friends, Prince Andrew, of course, being just one casualty of them. So, yeah, Donald Trump really keen to say nothing to see here, but I think people are certainly going to keep asking.
I absolutely don't think that story is going away any time soon. Chalk and cheese, back to our own shores. 4 Labour Party MPs this afternoon dramatically suspended from the Labour Party. Catherine Fawcett, who are they and why have they been booted out?
Yes, so 4 suspended. They are Neil Duncan Jordan. He came in last year. Chris Hinchcliffe, he came in last year. Brian Leishman, he came in last year as well. And Rachel Maskell, now she has been a Labour MP for 10 years. She's very well known, well established. She's had lots of shadow cabinet positions. And then there's 3 other MPs who haven't had the whip taken away, but they've had trade envoy roles removed. Those are Rosina Allen Khan, Belle Ribeiro Addy and Mohammed Yassin. Now, What all of these people have in common is that they all rebelled against this welfare bill. We had 47 defied the government, even though the bill was basically gutted and the £5 billion that the government wanted to save has gone up in smoke. Cue tax rises come the autumn, almost certainly. We are being told that this was for repeated breaches of party discipline. There's been some speculation that some of these people might have thought about joining a new party with Jeremy Corbyn. Perhaps that's being heavily denied. But I think this is definitely about sending a message before summer recess to all these Labour MPs to say, look, I am in charge here, and, you know, remember that, because clearly, it's been a threat to the Prime Minister's authority and the government's ability to get stuff done.
Catherine Forsyth was joined by Graham Stringer on the show. He said this was a sign of weakness, not of strength, but still more fractures in the Labour Party. Catherine Forsyth, thank you very, very much. And let's return now to today's top story, which is, of course, that the government has been running a secret resettlement scheme for thousands of Afghan nationals after a huge data breach put their lives at risk at the massive cost to the British taxpayer of £850 million and rising. But let's demonstrate the human impact of this calamity now. I'm joined by the British Army veteran of 16 years, Andrew Kirk. And Cookie claims he was evicted by the Ministry of Defence to make way for an Afghan family. Welcome to the show, Cookie. You're at the thick end of this. This impacted on your life. Tell us what happened.
Evening, Martin. Yes, thank you very much. Rewind to 2023. I was medically discharged. It was the right thing to do. Part of that process, you get a whole bunch of resettlement packages to transition from military life to civilian life. One of those packages is retention to retain your service family accommodation. Now, it is caveated, and it does say it is at the discretion of the Defence Infrastructure Organisation. However, at the time, if we go back, we were in the midst of the financial crisis, interest rates were through the roof, so I decided that would really support and help me. I applied in May of 23, and it was rejected. Fast forward then to September 23, and suddenly a large quantity of Afghan nationals suddenly turn up on the estate and occupy a large quantity of the houses that weren't occupied, which then led me to being out, moving over at Christmas time with my family, and any options of support gone.
Cookie, I've been hearing of instances like this for the past couple of years now, and it suddenly becomes obvious why we couldn't get any information from the MOD about this, because there was this super injunction. It prohibited anything from getting out there, and so the anecdotal evidence was in the background, the evidence was building, and the theory on the ground was that British veterans were being kicked out of their digs to make way for Afghani nationals. Now we know that that's true. We don't know how big this scandal is. We don't know how many people were impacted. We don't know the cost, but we do know is that it directly impacted your life.
Absolutely, it did as well. And I sent an email to the local MP, Mr. Kruger, at the time, asking these questions on two parts. One, from my selfish perspective of when I needed the help and support of leaving the army and becoming a civilian, it was rejected. Now, at the time, I thought it was for service reasons, and I completely accepted that as always. And the needs of the service come first. Always accept that. However, when it's there for something else and it's covered up, we don't know. Mr. Kruger then didn't reply to me until after that the problem had gone, and I was basically then out of the house. So when he did reply, it was a very loose reply of give me a call at some point. The problem was my problem issue, the selfish problem had gone. But I did also raise to him as well the other fact of going at the time, none of us on the estate were notified that the Afghan nationals were coming in. There was no plan to embed, no plan to integrate. One day it was just service personnel. The next day was now groups of males, females and children, but just hanging around the streets. We didn't know where they come from. It wasn't until walking around then find, because they had food stations as well, they were brought food. They go, right, okay, that part of the estate is now taken, all for Afghan nationals. We didn't know if there was going to be an increased presence of security. Again, I did 7 tours of Afghanistan. A lot of blue on green, green on green was going on over there. There's all these questions now that were just not communicated, not answered. And it still seems today there is no plan to integrate and embed. So I know they're talking hundreds of millions. It's going to be in the billions because it's going to take all the unemployment still. They're not paying the rents. There's going to be more houses. There's no jobs. They're not bringing any rents. There's the hospitals, the doctors, the dentists. Accumulate all these things, we're talking billions.
Cookie, what's astonishing about this, and I'm trying to get my head around this in real time, you served in Afghanistan for Queen and country. It was still under Her Majesty then. You served out there. You did your best. You put your life on the line. No doubt you lost comrades when you were out there. You put country first over your own safety. You witnessed... what I'm trying to get my head around here is that what did you see out there that gave you a conclusion about the kind of men that suddenly you're seeing are dropped on your doorstep? What did you see in Afghanistan that made you think, actually, this might not be a good idea?
A huge amount. And first and foremost, as it's been said many times in your show, there is a huge, vast culture difference. It is not a case of just come over and here is the British culture now and settle into it. They don't really follow central government. They are tribal still. They listen to each other in their own villages. They are just completely different. And so we spent 20 years in Afghanistan and we still didn't understand the culture at the end of it. So the plan on how to actually integrate, unknown. There was all sorts of other things that were ongoing and rumours as such. Of course, never seen it personally, but there was incidents of Afghan National Army and young boys, girls that were all mingling together. One could only imagine what was going on, and there's many things out there that says what was going on. But we do not understand them. We don't understand the culture. And now they're here, and we don't know what's going to happen.
And Cookie, just to make people understand how you put your life on the line, you're one of a few UK soldiers to be awarded the US Bronze Order of Mercury from the US Signal Corps. I'm right. Tell us about that amazing honour.
No, absolutely. So, yes, I've received multiple commendations, but one of the key ones was working with our US allies. I was supporting the division and really helped to improve the communications between them at the divisional level and for ourselves at brigade level, and developing a more cohesive command and control and communication structure with the Americans, to which then they decided to honour me with the US Bronze Order of Mercury, which was a real honour to receive.
You know, Cookie, I'm sort of getting a bit emotional here, mate, because you've risked your life, you've been highly decorated, you've supported Britain's allies in a conflict of war in a country you helped to try and preserve and rebuild. You come back to Britain, you've been kicked out your digs from people from that country. I have to ask you a brutal question. How does that make you feel?
It's just extremely deflating. And the key thing for me is I know a lot has been said about finding the person to blame. And for me, I'm not overly interested in that person to blame and to hang somebody out dry. The important piece is to learn the lesson and stop making the same mistakes. This was done under a Conservative government. I do feel that we're making the same mistakes with the current government. There's actions and decisions that are being taken that impact British taxpayers here, and they either do not care, which I hope is not the case, or they're just bypassing it. They're just completely overlooking.
Cookie, I want to try and get to the heart of the matter. You know, you've risked everything for your country, and your country has treated you like this. What does that say to you about what our country has become?
It's extremely sad. We sacrifice, we miss Christmases, birthdays with my children to go and help and support the Afghans and other people around the world. And the one time that I asked for help and support when I really needed it, I didn't want to leave the army, but it was the right thing to do. I was medically not able to do it anymore because of a peanut allergy. So I supported them in removing me as soon as possible. But when I asked them for one thing, it was no, and it was to help unknown at the time. And it wasn't communicated, as we see throughout the show. It has been a scandal, it's been a cover-up, and it's been at the sacrifice of normal British people. And it will continue to do so as well, because this has not ended, and there will be greater and greater impact to everybody.
Okay, Andrew Cook, we have to leave it there. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. I've been wanting to get you on for some time, but now we understand the super injunction was there. Thank you for your service. Thank you for what you did for Queen and country. I truly mean that. Yeah. Once again, I find myself getting a bit emotional on this show. Cookie, top man, thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Now, MOD sources have confirmed to GBNews that they are looking into Andrew's case at this stage. Lots more still to come between now and 6 o'clock. And still to come, a landmark court case has found that police breached impartiality by marching under a pride flag. I'll be joined by the free speech warrior, the victorious Harry Miller of Faircop. That's next. But first, here's your latest news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you. Yes, the top stories. Donald Trump addressed the Jeffrey Epstein files whilst meeting the Crown Prince of Bahrain at the White House. The US president said people who believe the files are stupid. The president also denied that he plans to fire Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell, contradicting a senior White House official. Sir Keir Starmer has suspended 4 Labour MPs over breaching party discipline. Rachel Maskell, Neil Duncan-Jordan, Brian Leishman and Chris Hinchcliffe have had the party whip removed, meaning the MPs will sit as independent in the House of Commons. The final Prime Minister's questions before summer recess saw sharp clashes this afternoon, with Kemi Badenoch accusing Sir Keir Starmer of failing to define working people.
I asked him what a modest income was. He answered what a working person is. He doesn't know what a modest income is, and even on working people, they cannot define it.
The Prime Minister hit back, saying after 14 years of Conservative government, they don't get to lecture anyone.
Since we've been in government, we've created 380,000 jobs, the employment rate is up, and inactivity is down, the complete opposite of what we inherited.
Sir Keir Starmer says the Tories have serious questions to answer over what he called a major data breach exposing thousands of Afghans who helped UK forces. The leak led to a secret £850 million relocation scheme. Thousands of Afghans are now being moved to the UK. Those are your latest headlines for now. More news from me at 6 o'clock.
Hello, very good afternoon to you. This is your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. We are going to see some thundery rain pushing into western parts as we go through later this week. All the time, eastern areas holding on to the drier weather for a little bit longer. That's because there's higher pressure towards the east of us, with weather systems trying to come in from the west. Through the rest of today, they're not making a huge amount of progress, just bringing a bit of cloud and rain to the far southwest. But actually, as we go overnight, we're going to see a bit more of that wet weather feeding in across parts of Wales and Northern Ireland in particular, and some of that is going to be heavy, could even be thundery too. Further east, clearer skies, but despite the clearer skies, it's not going to be a particularly chilly night. A pretty warm night for most of us, temperatures holding up in the mid to high teens in some places, especially towards the west. So a warm start to the day tomorrow, quite a bright one across much of Scotland. Lots of sunshine on offer here, just a little bit more cloud, some showery bursts perhaps pushing into the far west of Scotland, Dumfries, Galloway perhaps getting some of those heavier bursts. So across Northern Ireland, a cloudier start to the day, and there will be outbreaks of rain. They are going to turn heavy and thundery later, and it's a westy split as we head further south across England and Wales. Western parts will be quite cloudy, and there will be a bit of rain pushing through at times. The best of the sunshine through tomorrow will always be across eastern areas, but even here there will be a bit more cloud developing as we go through the day as that system makes its way in. The heaviest rain and the greatest risk of thunder will be across western parts of Northern Ireland. Some torrential downpours could cause some localised issues. Temperatures for tomorrow will be a little bit higher than today, so it is going to feel pretty hot for some, particularly towards the southeast, and also quite humid again. Not as hot as it was over the weekend, however. As we go through the end of the day, more heavy thundery downpours affecting some western, northwestern parts, drier towards the east, but eventually some rain will push through towards some eastern parts later this weekend. Through the weekend, it is going to turn wetter, but also fresher for most.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday Five. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight on the
unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Time is 5:38 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, the High Court has dramatically ruled in favour of Lindsay Smith in her case against Northumbria Police. Now, judges agreed that the force's uniform participation in last year's Pride March breached their duty to remain impartial. Well, was this a win for common sense? And does this mean that the days of coppers dancing the Macarena are sadly finally behind us? Well, joining me now to discuss this is the founder of Fair Cop and the former police officer Harry Miller, who was with Lindsay in the High Court earlier on today, and a man I warrant has never once danced the Macarena. Harry Miller, you've won again. Tell us more.
Yeah, I just do it, mate. It's what I do. I win. I tell you what, mate, I've got that many Chief Constable scalps on my garage wall. You're going to have to start calling me Geronimo. And then this one was easy. You know, I would love to have come on this show and say that the Chief Constable wasted hundreds of thousands of pounds of Northumbria taxpayers' money. But honestly, I think she got her barrister down from Poundland because he was absolutely rubbish. He had the collective brains of the Tin Man and Wurzel Gummidge. They had no defence. They were utterly useless. And we absolutely put them to the sword. Great day. Very, very happy.
OK, Harry, for the benefit of those who don't know what the case was about, fill our viewers in.
OK, so Chief Constable Vanessa Jardina has insisted that she knew best, that even though Pride was political, she said she only identified with the celebratory party aspects of the Pride March and that she could somehow opt out of the political bits. Well, the judge was having absolutely none of it and said, this is like a general leading her troops into battle. And then he said, what would you do if there was a counter-protest at the Proud March with gender-critical people and lesbians there? And their answer was this. Well, there couldn't be a Pride March because it's down to the Chief Constable to give permission for a counter march, and we wanted to give him permission. So she's been running an autocracy up there, a rainbow autocracy. And thank God the judge has brought his hammer down and said that it's absolutely unlawful. And I think that police officers, regular bobbies up and down the country will be celebrated tonight because no more will they be forced into this atrocious business of dancing and prancing and doing the Macarena when what they actually want to do is go out there and nab bad people's collars. That's what they want to do, Martin, and we've given permission to do that. A great day.
Now, Harry Miller, you're clearly full of beans. You're clearly on your haunches. And I understand that the bigger issue here, let's be abundantly clear, you've said all along, this is not about being homophobic. This is about actually acknowledging that Pride is a political movement by its own stated aims, and this is about removing the politics from policing because, as you say so eloquently, if the police align themselves with Pride, they're aligning themselves with its politics, and if you disobey with that, if you disagree with that, the police have already taken sides.
That's exactly right. It's a little bit like the Chief Constable saying that she's going to go to a Tommy Robinson rally because she just wants to identify with a great celebration of Englishness. It wouldn't happen. It couldn't happen. Certain marches, certain events are by their very nature political, and she cannot opt out of this. Now, we have no problem at all with people marching in pride. We have no problem at all with people celebrating, campaigning to change the law. That is part and parcel of a great British democracy. But what the police need to do, if she wants to go to Pride this year, then let her go. Let her go and direct the traffic, because that's about all she's good for. We have no problem at all with regular bobbies turning up, celebrating, all the rest of it. But if you're a public figure, you can't be there. And you definitely can't be there in uniform, and you definitely can't be there with a T-shirt that says that you're part of the police LGBTQ police network. You can't do it. If you're recognisable as a policeman, then you should not be there, other than to keep the peace and make sure that the march passes by in an orderly fashion. That's what we want.
Okay. All right, Harry, let's not lay into the individual officer too much. She's not here to defend herself. Don't get me in trouble, mate. I'm having a really nice afternoon. But on a serious point, do you think now this could begin a nationwide pushback against pride in policing? Or, as we saw with the Supreme Court ruling on the definition of a woman, do you think oftentimes public bodies think they're somehow above the law? They'll just carry on.
Yeah. Well, what was fantastic about this is that the judge, he addressed the so-called public sector equality duty and said you can't, in the name of the public sector equality duty, just start raising flags and dancing and showing allegiance to one political group. So yes, this has a direct effect on every chief constable up and down the country, but it also has an effect, I think, on the wider public body, that if you have a duty not to show partiality, then you have no business whatsoever raising the flag, marching with pride, demanding that people have pronouns in their bio, or anything that signals that you are part and parcel and a supporter of this very political movement. There's nothing wrong with the political movement. We're all for political movements. But if you're a police officer, a chief constable, or a public body, you should not be involved in it. So it's a great day, Martin.
Now, Harry Miller, you've been battling for a long time. You won yourself. You took the government to court when they got you for a transphobic limerick. I understand, Harry, this may be your final fling. You're going to hang up your gavel, as it were. You're retiring from Fair Cop. You're about to go on a nice holiday. Is this your final swan song?
Well, I think so, Martin. You know me, I've always liked Johnny Rotten far more than Bono. I want it to be a Sex Pistol, not U2. I want to come in, smash things up, and then leave on a high, not end my days doing a residency in Vegas. That's just not me, Martin. So, yeah, I think I'm going to still be doing bits and pieces in the background. But you know what? You've got to know when you've won. And we've changed policing from top to bottom. And I think it's probably time to just say, you know what, we did great. Let's just go and have an holiday. I tell you what, Mrs. Miller will be very happy about that.
I bet you will. I'll tell you what, for the Johnny Rotten of policing politics, now go and have a nice holiday in the sun. You'll get that one. We're men of a certain age. Harry Miller, always a pleasure. Another victory there for Harry Miller, founder of Fair Cop. You might know you go. Now, a right of reply there, because that was quite a one-sided take. A spokesperson for Northumbria Police told GB News this. During these events, while our primary aim is to keep people safe, it also provides us with an opportunity to engage with people, including those who may have less confidence in policing. It is vitally important they feel supported and we continue to build their trust in us. And that is why we felt it important to challenge the case which was brought against us and which has implications for wider policing. We will work through the ruling to understand the implications while staying true to our values of fairness, visibility and support for all. Now, if you're in search of some holiday sun like Harry Miller, then here is the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
There's the risk of some more heavy, thundery downpours affecting eastern parts of Europe as we go through the rest of this week. But across western areas towards the Canary Islands, Madeira, across much of Spain and Portugal, it's largely fine on Thursday. A decent amount of sunshine and feeling very warm or hot in that sunshine as well. Some showery rain likely across much of Italy, drier towards the south, but across parts of Greece, Turkey, there will be a fair few showers on offer. A drier theme for many through the end of the week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Tell me now, are you concerned about these driverless cars, Tim, that are going to be put into operation in London by as early as next year?
Well, Uber is preparing to test fully self-driving taxis on London's roads for the first time. By 2026, I have an observation there that if you look at Elon Musk over the last 5 or 6 years, kept promising that there were going to be driverless cars. The norm in America, and it hasn't happened yet. So I'd be very surprised if by 2026 that's actually on the streets of London. I'm more intrigued, though, if they are driverless robotic cars, if they're still going to give you a review. You know, you get your 5 stars at the end if you were a good passenger. Who's going to review how good you are once you're in these cars?
Would you trust it? Would you take one?
I think
I would, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Really?
Would you, Claire?
I know, I'm a bit reticent.
I'm a bit nervous about it.
Yeah, accepting a driverless
I think
car.
what they do eventually is they'll take any joy out of driving that there is. You get you won't get in, you feel the smell, get the gear stick. You know, I mean, a car is a great joyous thing
I don't take any joy from
to
driving.
drive. Yeah.
I take no joy. It's awful.
What?
Such a chore.
Is that because
driving?
Are you a good driver?
No, I'm a terrible
well, that's
driver.
why.
So maybe this could be a good thing for me.
I think it's
I need
the
to see the other
drivers
side of
that take the joy out of it sometimes.
Oh, I just think, can you imagine a glitch in the Matrix with a driverless car? What on earth could happen?
Well, you and I live in Chiswick, and the Chiswick High Road, like lots of high roads in many towns and villages.
Well, it's the bus lanes that's a problem with
But they've
Chiswick High
closed
Road.
all those down now, and if an ambulance goes down, there is carnage trying to get through to whoever they're needing to treat.
Or in King Street, if a bus tries to overtake a bus or anything else, you can't do it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. 10 to 6 is your time. I'm Martin Daubney here on GB News. Now, a Spanish footballer has been lambasted after reportedly hiring dwarves as entertainers for his 18th birthday party. Now, a disability group has even threatened legal action, saying that the dignity and the rights of people with dwarfism cannot be a source of amusement under any circumstances. Well, I'm delighted to say now I'm rejoined by the American comedian and the dwarf, Tanya Lee Davis. Tanya, welcome back to the show. So sorry we had to cut you short earlier. We went to Donald Trump. We've got you back. The viewers are delighted. They really wanted to hear what you had to say because, as we were saying earlier, there seem to be a lot of liberal-minded, regular-sized people taking offence on behalf of people like yourself.
Yeah, which is absolutely ridiculous. Like I said before, stay in your own lane. You are taking the power away from little people making their own decisions by that attitude, which is ridiculous. And at the end of the day, getting to a footballer party, a celebrity party, you know, they're doing it on their own accord. It's not like they're being forced to drink champagne or do drugs off prostitutes' backsides. You know, they're having fun, they're getting paid. It's their choice at the end of the day.
And do you know what? This seems to break out all the time. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, you know, the latest, version of that. Snow White wasn't white and there weren't any dwarves. And I said at the time, that's simply putting people out of work.
Absolutely. And you know, Peter Dinklage, who is a phenomenal actor and a great representation for the little people community, was sort of leading the charge, saying that little people should not play dwarves or dwarves should not play dwarves, which is absolutely ridiculous. You're taking away the original essence of that fairy tale, and you know, plus as a Gen Xer, I grew up with the Seven Dwarfs as great role models. They all had jobs. They worked at a diamond factory. One of them was a doctor. I mean, they had a lady cooking and cleaning, maybe getting a little something on the side. Come on, they're great role models. There's nothing wrong with dwarves playing dwarves.
Do you know what? It's amazing to talk to you like this, because we live in such an era of political correctness. And I think I said to you before, I used to work on a magazine where we would hire dwarves for photo shoots, full confession, and they were delighted. One of them was an Ewok. He worked in the Star Wars movies, got to travel the world. Other ones worked with Ozzy Osbourne, Black Sabbath. Again, they got to travel the world, and they were furious when they were told by regular-sized people that this is politically incorrect.
Absolutely. Well, it's the same with the midget wrestling. There's a group of little people, a couple of different groups, and they travel around the country making a substantial amount of money. I grew up watching regular-sized wrestling with my grandfather, and when I would see all of a sudden a little person wrestler, I was like, that's so cool. They can do it just like the big guys. So all these controversies that, like, you know, it's just enough already. Just stay in your own lane, back off. We got this. We can handle our own stuff.
Oh, this has been the highlight of what's been a beautiful day. Go on.
By the way, can I mention that I am coming back to Scotland? I'll be at the Edinburgh Fringe with Abnormally Funny People. It's our 20-year reunion show, and then I'll be doing a tour of 9 towns, cities in Scotland. So go to Thanet.
Okay, great. We can see you in Britain. We've got to cut you short there once again. Now let's go to somebody who never comes up short. Jubes & Co is up next.
What an inspiration. That lady has absolutely loved her. Look, there's a lot that we need to get into tonight. The expansion of Prevent. Is that needed? Would that have stopped creatures like Axel Rudakabana? I also want to look at Keir Starmer finally trying to get tough with his party. Will that work or not? And of course, the fallout from the Afghan crisis continues. But still, the main question of the day is, what else is our government hiding from us? And Sandy Peggy, does that name mean anything to you? It should. The lady will go down in history. I'll tell you why in 2.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers. Sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, very good afternoon to you. This is your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. We are going to see some thundery rain pushing into western parts as we go through later this week. All the time, eastern areas holding on to the drier weather for a little bit longer. That's because there's higher pressure towards the east of us, with weather systems trying to come in from the west. Through the rest of today, they're not making a huge amount of progress, just bringing a bit of cloud and rain to the far southwest. But actually, as we go overnight, we're going to see a bit more of that wet weather feeding in across parts of Wales and Northern Ireland in particular, and some of that is going to be heavy, could even be thundery too. Further east, clearer skies, but despite the clearer skies, it's not going to be particularly chilly night. A pretty warm night for most of us, temperatures holding up in the mid to high teens in some places, especially towards the west. So a warm start to the day tomorrow, quite a bright one across much of Scotland. Lots of sunshine on offer here, just a little bit more cloud, some showery bursts perhaps pushing into the far west of Scotland, Dumfries, Galloway perhaps getting some of those heavier bursts. So across Northern Ireland, a cloudier start to the day, and there will be outbreaks of rain. They are going to turn heavy and thundery later, and it's a west-east split as we head further south across England and Wales. Western parts will be quite cloudy, and there will be a bit of rain pushing through at times. The best of the sunshine through tomorrow will always be across eastern areas, but even here there will be a bit more cloud developing as we go through the day as that system makes its way in. The heaviest rain and the greatest risk of thunder will be across western parts of Northern Ireland. Some torrential downpours could cause some localised issues. Temperatures for tomorrow will be a little bit higher than today, so it is going to feel pretty hot for some, particularly towards the southeast, and also quite humid again. Not as hot as it was over the weekend, however. As we go through the end of the day, more heavy thundery downpours affecting some western, northwestern parts, drier towards the east, but eventually some rain will push through towards some eastern parts later this weekend. Through the weekend, it is going to turn wetter, but also fresher for most.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Be cautious on the A1 northbound at Wallyford due to a broken down vehicle. Roadworks on the M48 eastbound Severn Bridge cause closures and diversions. In York, expect lane closures on the A64 eastbound. There are lane closures on the M6 northbound entry slip at junction 24. Significant congestion delays traffic by 10 minutes on the A50 eastbound. All lanes are closed on the A47 westbound in Norfolk due to a traffic incident. And on the trains, major disruptions are reported by Cross Country and East Midlands Railway at Peterborough. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Imagine having an extra £1,000 to spend each week for an entire year. £54,321 in tax-free cash could be yours. Cash to spend however you like. £54,321 in cash could be landing in your bank account this year. For another chance to win £54,300